Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discography Breakdowns. And today, this month, a little bit late into the month, so late, in fact, that I will probably not have this edited up in time for it to be proper, but this is kind of the part two of this channel's double-decker Pride Month celebration. We talked about I Saw the TV Glow with friend of the channel, Luke, as kind of part one. And the second part two here is going to be special guest Cole, of course, donning all of the appropriate attire to talk about the discography of Lady Gaga. Pride is in the air. It's happening downtown. I just drove past my own. And we
Nice.
want to continue. We want to continue the spirit, moving on with one of I think an artist who very early on positioned themselves into the queer pop cultural space, both based on their identity and their fan base, very, very quickly. So, Cole, why don't you start us off a little bit? Where does the story of Lady Gaga begin exactly?
All right, little monsters, put your paws up. So, Lady Gaga, or as her name is, Stefani Joanne Angelina Germanotta, was
And of course,
born.
the other reason I recruited Cole is because I needed a true blue Italian to be able to say that name.
So, she was born in 1986 on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, New York City, and was raised by her parents there. She took an interest in music after her mother suggested she started playing the piano. And she just ended up being sort of a natural prodigy. She latched on very quickly, participated in school musicals and stuff like that. Um, at around the turn of the 2000s, she started getting interested in acting, which didn't really go anywhere, except for one episode of The Sopranos where she has a background role as a high school student, which resurfaced very quickly when she started getting popular because everyone was like, oh shit, she was on The Sopranos. Um, and she bounced around from label to label. She was playing a lot of clubs on the Lower East Side and across Manhattan. And eventually, this all basically goes through multiple different rounds of writing different songs, getting stuff ready for people. And then 2008 is really where the story begins with the release of her first album, The Fame.
This is such a fascinating period of when pop stars began emerging that would really begin to like dominate the landscape of the years to follow. And it's really,
Mhm.
notably speaking, I feel like, at least in my experience, and I know we're the same age, is that this is when pop music to me became completely inescapable. Like
Yeah.
every single one of Lady Gaga's hits is burned into my head, and it
Mhm.
was through no volition of my own. It was just because they were completely like, this is when we were discovering like, oh, this is our generation's version of Madonna. We're never going to be able to escape this entirely. And what I find
Talk
the
more
most
about Madonna later.
fascinating, what now?
We'll talk more about Madonna later.
Oh, we certainly will.
There's a story there.
And what I find so fascinating about the pop stars of this era who became to pop up, who largely are still active today, is that so many of them had that kind of early stewing phase where they began as something very, very different from what they ended up. We had another subject that we've talked about on the show before. Lana Del Rey notably started out with a debut
Yep.
album that was way different from what she would use later.
Hmm.
Same thing with Katy Perry also
Yep.
debuting as a Christian artist and then not doing that later. And
She
I
should
think,
probably go back to that, all things considered.
look, all I'm saying is it's the one thing about her career that she hasn't exploited for nostalgia yet. So who knows at this point? Um, that being said, I still feel like even some of the more like successful, long-standing pop stars still had to do minor reinventions of themselves. Like I think that the two pop stars from this era that became successful in these years, not like just these years, especially with one of the cases I'm about to use, but of course, I think the two dominant pop stars of right now, I'm thinking of
Yeah.
Beyonce and Taylor Swift. Both
Uh-huh.
of which who I feel like Beyonce began as somebody who's like, I need to step out of the shadow of Destiny's Child, and Taylor Swift kind of quickly came onto the scene with a very country adjacent sound that she was slowly trying to get rid of in order to pursue that, again, pop star direction with her sound. And so everybody had a kind of awkward teen phase, as it were. But Lady Gaga seems to have been like, she waited long enough so that when she finally did make a debut, it was like, oh, this feels curated. This feels like a fully formed personality, a fully formed identity plopped right here into our laps with the fame.
Right. She had done all of this work building up to this point, bus, another club, another club, another club, no sleep, next place, another club, another club, another club. But she had her identity pretty well formed at that point, bringing in a little bit more of the glam rock and a bit more of an 80s sound to the music that she was doing at the time. She was performing as a cabaret act a lot of the time back in 2007 or so.
Very important. Remember,
Yeah.
remember the cabaret
Mhm.
act.
Yes. And yeah, 2008 was this transitional period where pop music really took over the charts again. The early 2000s were very heavily dominated by R&B, hip hop, rap, and there was this trend basically for the first Obama term from
Recession
2008
pop.
to 2013, exactly recession pop. Everything went crashing down, and so everybody, wanted to just dance.
Absolutely. And I mean, which explains, I think, the success behind most of her hits because Lady Gaga is somebody who basically all of her early stuff is just about the meta concept of fame, the idea of the artist, the kind of taking it as an image and deconstructing it in a way that makes me think of at least like the person I compare Lady Gaga to the most when it comes to their arc as a pop star and their creative directions that they kind of bounce back and forth from is David Bowie.
Yeah.
Another sort of beloved queer icon who like very early on was making stuff like Ziggy Stardust that was
Mhm.
very like I am going to kind of poke and prod at what the establishment idea of a pop star is and kind of
Yeah.
lend it a little bit more dimension. And Lady Gaga is almost doing the same thing by doing the exact opposite. And that she feels like she's boiling everything down to the rawest essentials and
Mhm.
taking something from like what I think is really smart, at least about these first two albums, is that she's taking a sound from the kind of electro pop and electro synth kind of phase of pop music that was a little bit more on the periphery. It wasn't like as big as some of the R&B stuff of that decade was, but it was very much like from a scene that was very like sleazy and underground and very sexual, like those buzzing electro synths across the fame that
Mhm.
just define what this album sounds like were very endemic of a particular kind of like metropolitan pop underground almost
Yeah.
that made her feel really unique when you compared her up against basically everybody she was competing against. And I think she very smartly took the baton. Like, I feel like you can trace the origin of Lady Gaga into what I think, anyway, is one of Madonna's most underrated albums. That being, I believe, is it 2004, 5 that the album Hung Up is on?
So Confessions on a Dance Floor came out in 2005.
Five. Okay, I feel like 2005, we have Confessions on the Dance Floor, and this to me feels like it's kind of Madonna bringing herself into the modern era, kind of sort of like how Britney Spears was kind of doing with
Mhm.
Blackout in a way
Yeah.
too. And then those two albums, you kind of throw them together and you more or less get the fame.
Yeah, no, I completely see that. What's I gonna say? And in that moment where she was breaking out, she was really taking a lot of inspiration from Andy Warhol, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Had set up her team, House of Gaga, just to really establish herself as this completely out there, crazy artist that will grab your attention no matter what because she wants it so desperately, which helps set her apart from a lot of the music at that time. The soft rock was a big thing at the time as well. So, it's
Oh
much
yeah.
more extroverted, much more aggressive, much more willing to be naughty and have fun.
And every kind of movement, I feel like in pop music kind of has to have this sort of envelope pusher. Like we already mentioned that Madonna was very much that in the 80s, sort of like pushing forward this very forwardly feminine, forwardly sexual, kind of ambiguously sexually dexterous kind of image. And Lady
Yeah.
Gaga was that, but she pushed it in like such a far place that it became like it was very easy at the time to compare her to somebody like Kanye, who was also,
Yeah.
I mean, they would ultimately collaborate at one point, but they were both people who were like, I am making art about the idea of making art, and I'm also going to push myself into a place that is so ridiculous and so that the media will make up stories about me that'll ultimately just
Oh yeah.
balloon my success. Although I
Mhm.
will say I think Lady Gaga controlled her narrative with a lot more skill, let's say.
Oh, she was much more shrewd about it, and she has been, she hasn't gone screaming off the deep end, like certain rappers have, unfortunately. But
You know, as a matter of fact, is Lady Gaga kind of one of those artists that I truly respect because we just don't really like she doesn't other than like interviews that obviously are kind of on her own terms. She's somebody who doesn't like we don't hear a lot from her. It's very
no,
like she just kind of she goes, she does her thing, she'll say she's here and then she'll disappear.
yeah. I mean, this is a model that was popularized by Michael Jackson, by Prince,
Mm-hmm.
and then, of course, Beyonce took that really to heart. And now, more or less, a lot of the big celebrities do this now. Eventually you reach a point of fame where you just don't want to interact with the public anymore because it gets so exhausting.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. And I mean, that like really boils to the surface in songs like, I mean, the most sort of, I would say the most successful song on the Fame, for me anyway, is probably I guess a tie between Paparazzi and Poker Face. Two
oh yeah.
songs that are very much, again, paparazzi about the kind of weird toxic relationship that celebrities do end up having with the press that ultimately becomes
Mhm.
a kind of narcissistic, sincere sort of love from both of their perspectives, because ultimately they're kind of parasites that feed off of each other, as the
Yeah.
song kind of demonstrates with its kind of repetitive structure. And Poker Face, which is the idea of being completely stone faced in the face of adversity, in the face of everybody trying to pry into your shit, and everybody and the fact that Lady Gaga was not open, the fact that she was very closed off and very like, you had all those rumors about like, oh, is Lady Gaga like really a man and like all of that kind of shit. It was
Yeah.
really smart. It was really,
Mhm.
really smart to hook people in and to keep people talking about her. It was just like, you couldn't hear a Lady Gaga song without also thinking like, oh, the meat dress or like something fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, and paparazzi is a really crucial part of this narrative, because at the 2009 VMAs, which are, as we all know, is probably the most iconic ceremony the VMAs have ever had because of the, Taylor, I'm gonna let you finish
Yeah, yeah.
videos of all time.
Uh-huh.
For that ceremony, she performed paparazzi, just all decked out in white. There's a giant chandelier, a grand staircase. She's playing on the piano. And I remember watching the VMAs that year and being so stunned by that performance, and particularly the moment where she starts bleeding out from her white corset and it just keeps
Yeah.
going and going and going. And she's singing, I'll follow you until you love me. And then dying at the end of the performance, being lifted up into the air on a meat hook and then, a literal mic drop from like 20 feet up. It was just such a fucking gag.
You like it is kind of a shame that the whole Kanye drama overshadows that, because it's like that was so clearly built as to be like that was supposed to be the thing that people were walking away from that event supposed to be talking about, like, holy
Yeah.
fuck, did you see that Lady Gaga performance? That was
Mhm.
absolutely insane. And this is kind of like the specter of this principle will kind of follow Lady Gaga through the rest of her career, unfortunately, where it feels like she brings out all of the stops. She shoots for the moon and does all the right moves. And there's just some cosmic something that comes in the way of preventing her from achieving the kind of height of success that she was more than capable of achieving. It's just that it
Yeah.
didn't happen to go exactly the right way.
Maybe it's the ghost of Patricia Gianni, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. And I think the reason why I'm talking about like Lady Gaga kind of as an idea, as a sound, as an image when I'm talking about an album like The Fame is that like I more or less view this as a debut for Lady Gaga, the person, less maybe Lady Gaga, the artist, because it feels like she
Yeah,
does have a great grasp on what who she is, what she wants, and what she wants to do. But the songs, the that aren't the singles on here, feel like they are a result of, very, very, in-house aesthetic curation that also doesn't feel like they're primed to really succeed much elsewhere
yeah,
other than like people who are just really fucking into this sound to begin with.
yeah, yeah. And that album suffers a problem that a lot of the pop albums of the 2000s suffered from, which is just really poor track listing. You know,
Yes.
singles would be
Yes.
all the singles would be at the front of the album, and then by
Mm-hmm.
track 5 or 6 out of 13 or 14 or whatever, you would start to get into these album cuts that clearly were not meant to be heard as much. So then
Mm-hmm.
it kind of tapers off towards the end.
Quintessential example of that in the fact that I think that the A side of this album is like pretty solid, like really good. I think we've got, Just Dance. We have the absolutely ridiculous Love Game, Paparazzi, Immortal. I have a fondness for the really tacky and weirdly kind of austere, beautiful, dirty, rich.
Yeah,
And Poker Face obviously is like that's my favorite song here. That's the one that I think holds up the most. And
same.
then the B side of the album, it doesn't like dip substantially, but it's just like the median of quality is just there's no highlights. There's never like a moment where I'm like, oh, like Brown Eyes, for instance, is an interesting kind of detour. Like for this sound, it's a very
Mhm.
different kind of song. You're like, oh, hey, Lady Gaga actually has something going on here where that I did not really latch onto until I explored like her career for this video. In that
Yeah.
it's just like I saw the influence of someone who's like huge domination of the industry passed me by just because of timing, but it's just like you can feel the influence of Amy Winehouse at the
Oh
start of this.
God,
And even
absolutely.
stronger, like down the road, we can still kind of find that happening. That sort of classic, songstress, like, and even sort of like the multi-talented respect of Amy Winehouse, I feel like
Mhm.
can be found with a lot of Lady Gaga's stuff. But
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
and it's a really transitional time for pop music. It's a moment where nothing really has like a defined sound, but everything is kind of about the same thing. It's just like everybody
Mhm.
needs to get out of their house and go to the club. Like everybody has to
Yeah.
escape their problems. Everybody needs to get away and they need to just, ply themselves with drugs, ply themselves with drinking and forget that, they're poor. So
Yeah. Yeah. You're about to lose your house. The Wii is broken.
no, not the Wii.
Bush
But
is still there for some reason, but you just got to go have fun.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I don't feel the need to, unless I'm forgetting something important, to have a whole lot of preamble before we move into the follow-up to this, because correct me if I'm wrong, but the next album here did not begin its life as an album, I think. It began as kind of a bonus EP of sorts and then was retrofitted into an album.
Yes. So what this was is that it was planned solely as a deluxe edition
Right.
for Fame, but then they were listening to it and they were like, it's conceptually different. It's
Hmm.
conceptually different. It's also really expensive to put this together, and this follow-up sounds fucking expensive.
Oh, the 2009's The Fame Monster is this to me is the moment where Lady Gaga really finds herself like double what she did before. And I feel
Mhm.
like this is the album that like even online music nerds who have never seen the inside of the club will be like, no, this album is fucking legit. I think the fact that
Yeah,
this started as a deluxe edition and thus has a very, very pared back track list. This is a 34-minute album. It's 8 songs long. And frankly, this shit is nothing but heat. The
yeah,
whole fucking thing is great. Like, I have some really, like, I think that The Fame is an interesting novelty piece and it shows you where Lady Gaga was at, but it ultimately feels like a draft because of how fucking good The Fame Monster is.
yeah. I mean, honestly, there's sometimes where it's just so easy to take the singles from the Fame and just latch it onto the Fame Monster and just call it,
Mm-hmm.
forget about the rest of the tracks on the Fame, because the Fame Monster is the, I would say, even now, still the quintessential Gaga album.
I think I would totally agree with you. If the last album was her Ziggy Stardust, this is her Aladdin Sane. This is her dark
Mm.
inversion, more drugs, more weird, more out there, and more importantly, I feel like there's a bit more of a depth to the writing here. Like even with like this starts off with I think one of the most immortal Gaga bangers, that being Bad Romance, which is
Mhm.
like I I just fucking love this song. This hook is planet destroyingly huge. This song just sounds massive and just the conceit of it. I just love the idea of going for that sort of low art, bad romance novel kind of thing, but like
Yeah.
indulging in it and going just as deep, as seedy as humanly possible and just like it feels like the thesis statement for the album because more or less every song seeks out to make you throw ass in the way that this does.
Yeah, no, that is one of the best pop songs ever written. It is a
Uh-huh.
fucking monster of a track. Just from
And
the second, I mean, literally from the beginning where she starts, whoa,
it's more of the what I love to call the Gaga phonetic exercises. What I love about so much of her delivery is she's got that like she'll just kind of say nonsense in the hooks to
yeah.
her songs sometimes,
Mhm.
just the ga ga, like just shit like that. That just it adds a little extra bit of spice that's like anybody can just sort of like it's perfect to sing along in the car to basically. It's
Yeah.
really deceptively smart in the way that all of her idiosyncrasies are things that you can kind of replicate yourself and
Mhm.
sort of like you feel very swept up in it. It's so easy to get immersed in this music and like you said, this is an expensive sounding album. I feel like the production on here, like the electro synth sound isn't always my thing, but when you push it to the limit this much and like you go from
Yeah.
Bad Romance to something like Alejandro afterwards, which is another one where I was just like, man, the hook to this song stayed in my head for weeks. And I remember being a kid and just kind of being like, I don't really understand like this song just being about this like random guy's name, but I can't get it out of my head. I can't. Don't call my name, don't call my name, Fernando. The vocal melodies are so tight. They're so good. And like Alejandro in particular, super big Amy Winehouse vibes. It's just like you take
Oh
that, you
yeah.
combine it with Blackout by Britney Spears. That's how you get this album.
Yeah, you get this lush, raucous, just like night out where everyone's beyond fucked.
Yeah, this is an album where the end of it is like, yeah, you have a hangover now. Congratulations. Even though there are moments where I will say she does vary things up just a little bit, including what may tentatively be my favorite Lady Gaga song and definitely my favorite Lady Gaga deep cut, which is Speechless. I've never heard anyone talk about this song, and it like
I love this
floored me. It
song.
knocked me on my ass when I listened to it.
I love that you go, you have Bad Romance, Alejandro, Monster, which is another fucking tune.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And then you get like this Elton John glam rock ballad right in the middle of
Yes. Oh,
electric pop
it's
dance party.
absolutely. It very much feels like a classic-y, like singer-songwritery vibe being brought to the table here. And it is just this, it's enormous in a very different way that the rest of the album is enormous. It's enormous, like, in the sense that this is enormous in the way that, like, classic, like, Whitney Houston songs are enormous, for example. Like,
Hmm.
there's kind of a demure irony in Gaga's kind of cold delivery on some of her songs that are just like exude a kind of confidence and this sort of mystique. But here it's like, no, this is like sincere. Like, this is just somebody being very
Yeah.
upfront with their emotions, and it feels very refreshing.
Yeah, it's a delightful part of this album. And then, it goes right from that to Dance in the Dark, which is
Mm,
maybe my favorite deep cut from this part of the from this
great
album,
choice. Great choice.
which the name dropping is just spectacular in this track.
I I love the opening where it's the silicone, saline, poison inject me, baby. I'm a free bitch. I'm a free bitch. I love that kind of like injecting a kind of like Cronenbergian future body horror, like
Yeah.
microplasticky shit. Like that always like I love that kind of. It's very this whole album would be a great pairing with The Substance, I think.
Oh God, yes. It fits like a glove, honestly.
Yes. And of course, we have the other monster hit. I mean, not to fucking make a joke, but the monster hit on this album of two of the biggest pop stars of the decade collaborating on
Yeah.
telephone.
Hmm. Which is just a psychotically good banger.
Oh my God, I legitimately forgot how great this song was. Like I put this on and I was just like, "Oh shit. Okay, never mind. This shit whips. This shit's so
It,
fucking fun."
it's so easy to forget about that because the music video is so iconic from
Oh,
beginning
I
to
I
end.
I remember like is it I can't remember who is sitting at like the desk at the very beginning in like the
Oh,
opening like
oh
bit of it.
God.
But like I still have like moments of that. Like it was the first time I had ever really think I had sought out a music video just because people were
Mhm.
talking about it as like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, Beyonce and Gaga. Holy shit."
Mhm.
And like there every song on this album, with the exception of probably Speechless, does kind of have the same structure, but because this album is so short, it's just like a continuous, sustained pop off. That
Yeah.
like and that's why Telephone being the kind of first song on the back half is so essential because it really kind of, or Dance in the Dark rather, is the song that sort of gets the momentum going, and then you just kind of keep it feels like a structure that would be very at home on something like Renaissance Act One, for instance. It kind of feels like
Absolutely.
maybe Beyonce kind of double dipped and to be like, maybe I can do this again. And then she did. It's
Right.
like
Right.
both times.
The energy and then like a little bit of the drop off, it's so happy I could die, which
Oh
is a
yeah.
great song. I just love the detail about like drinking an entire bottle of red wine because I've been there.
Oh, for sure. I fucking like it's all about indulgence and it's always about acknowledging that whatever psychotic shit you're about to get up to is going to have a consequence, but fuck the consequence because you're going to have
Right.
fun, right? Like that is
All that matters.
it is the ultimate recession pop album. Like it is the
Yeah.
final form of it. In fact, I would say that it's kind of the last gasp of what I would call recession pop because outwards from here, it kind of feels like everything evolves into something a little more distinct. But like even So
Yeah.
Happy I Could Die and even the closer Teeth are just like I'm kind of flabbergasted as to how every single song on here did not become at least as successful as something like Alejandro was by comparison, because nothing
She
can touch Bad Romance.
Yeah. I mean, she honestly could have released every song off of this album as a single, and I mean that sincerely. And every single one of them probably would have popped off.
Oh, absolutely. Like if you tell me like this is not my personal favorite Lady Gaga album, though it is goddamned close. But this is to me, it is endemic of who she was at the time, and it is
Mhm.
so like it is the 2009 album. It is like if you want to know what the landscape of music was like and how the
Mhm.
waves were shifting, this was the album you were going to listen to get that kind of barometer.
Yeah, because you had Kesha, you had Rihanna,
Hmm.
you had Katie, of course. EDM had taken over the scene completely and had shoved R&B and hip hop and other, more rock as well to the side. And it was really just all about, who could have the fastest beats, the craziest beats.
Oh
And
yeah, and I mean it worked because
yeah,
that shit didn't go away for like I would wager to say that this kicks off the era of pop that in my lifetime anyway lasted the longest. I think you could reasonably argue that that era lasted maybe anywhere from 7 to 10 years. Like it just
it
did
feels
not
like
go
it,
away until debatably COVID killed it.
more or less. I would say possibly a little bit earlier, but
Yeah, like around like 2018, 2019 is when you kind of feel the tides begin to turn just a little bit with like
Mhm.
now that Lord is in full swing and now that we kind of have the minimalist thing going on, but like it's
Yeah,
kind of those two things and then one thing escaped and the other didn't. But
exactly.
this is the album. Like if you are just somebody who's curious as to Lady Gaga's oeuvre, if you want to get like just like a sample, a taste of like what she's like as an artist, this is where you start, hands
Yeah.
down, no questions
and
asked.
and and watch the music videos. This album,
Essential.
especially the music videos, are essential. The Bad Romance music video, which I believe was the first video on YouTube to hit 1 billion views,
God, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
is one of the best music videos ever made. It is an absolutely all out, balls to the walls, not gore fest, but I mean, it does end up, a man burning to death in bed.
Well, and the thing is too is that like when you said that Gaga had like that team, House of Gaga, it's like we really mean it when it's just like all the cooks were in the kitchen to make every aspect of how Lady Gaga was an artist the biggest it could possibly be. And that translates into visual art because it really feels like, I mean, again, we go back to Madonna. This woman watched a lot of like the David Fincher music videos for Madonna and then
Oh,
rolled
absolutely.
with it. And
Hmm.
then and did a fucking great job with it. Like
Yeah.
it really says something when you're just like, wow, this actually does sound reminiscent of music that Reznor and Ross, who collaborated with David Fincher, would go on
Yeah.
to make in the next
Honestly,
decade, which
it
is
fits.
that's crazy. That's
Right.
that's really forward looking and cool.
I
So
know the Fincher thing is funny too, because there's like moments in that video where she straight up looks like a xenomorph.
and you could probably tie in some girl with the dragon tattoo in there a little bit. Like
Oh yeah.
there's totally a whole lot of like grungy overlap in how she presents herself that is so like antithetical to how she sounds. Like again, she's so catchy, she's so immediate, every song gets stuck in your head. And then you see, the fucking music video and you're just like, oh, that's terrifying, actually, a little bit. And it's like every successful pop star has understood at some point that in order to last with people, you have to confuse them a little bit. You need
Yeah.
to baffle them and kind of mystify them. And that kind of begins, like, I really feel like Gaga at the Fame Monster and forward, like in 2009 to about 2013, this is like peak Gaga in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, she's
Absolutely.
here, she's going to stay, and she's going to do whatever she wants, including some of the wildest live performances that any pop star has ever done.
Absolutely. You need to make people look like Eminem at the VMAs when he handed her that award, and he just looked so confused.
Which it's very funny to mystify another provocateur like that is certainly something to behold. So very smartly, in my opinion, like Gaga stonks are rising.
Hmm.
Like where this is the moment where it's gonna make or break you, where you're just like, this is where I'm going to decide, am I going to be a lasting fixture in the public eye? And I think that the definitive answer to that is yes, in the form of 2011's Born This Way, which
Yep.
is an is a monster of an album, not to bring back the previous two titles because this is an hour long. And
It's
in
very
my
long.
in my opinion, it does kind of have a little bit of the unsteadiness of the debut, but what it still does have that kind of makes up for this and does make it a better album, in my opinion, that maybe it doesn't quite compete with the hit rate, the insane hit rate of the Fame Monster. It has some of the most unbelievable highlights of her entire career.
Agreed. Agreed.
we're starting off this album with a song like Marry the Night, which is like,
Mhm.
where the fuck was this song on the radio? This deserved to be everywhere.
I know.
What the hell?
This song's got an iconic music video of her dancing against a car burning in the rain. It's so fucking good.
It's it's awesome. This is when Gaga takes the visual aspect of herself and kind of devolves into nonsense. I think demonstrated by the cover of this album, the notably controversial cover of Born This Way,
Oh,
which is
she's just
the
a fan of Crash and Titan, you know?
listen, if Gaga was just like, yeah, Crash, my favorite David Cronenberg movie, I was like, nothing's ever made more sense. Nothing's ever made more sense. This is the Gaga bike. It's the arms are the little front things that attach to the
Yep.
spokes, and she is on the front of it like the little fucking wolf heads in Steven Spielberg's AI on the little bikes in that movie. That's the only thing I could compare it to. And it's this big chrome thing. And this
Right.
album is designed to be an explosion of color that I feel like is supposed. This is one of those albums that I feel like I can say is for the fans, but without meaning that in a kind of derogatory, pandery way. In the sense,
Yeah.
like, no, this is the album where Lady Gaga was like, I want to find my entire audience so that I can speak to as many people as possible. Because I think this is an important album to like. I know a lot of queer millennials that their identity is in this album.
Honestly, me included. I'm not
I
millennial. Me included.
understandable. I mean, how can it not when you have bangers on here like I mean naturally the title track Born This Way, eternal
Right.
fucking God Makes No Mistakes is legitimately one of the most genius singular pop lines of all time. It is like you will never get a more sincere, affirming, genuinely comforting sentiment in a
Right.
song like Born This Way than that
Mhm.
right there.
Or
And
just
like
like
this is
the opening line, it doesn't matter if you love him or capital HIM.
and it's like it's such a perfect blend of like she's obviously poking the bear a little bit of like that's going to make all the conservatives really angry, that's going to make
Mhm.
all of the Fox News hosts get all rumbled in their jimmies, but it's also going to penetrate the sphere and everybody's going to be like everybody who's paying attention is going to be like, "Oh, okay, I see what we're doing here now." And she really takes on this kind of image of this sort of like, devil may care rebel that's like it's a little bit more she's taking a bit more agency in her image because it's like she was
Yeah.
more before it's like she was kind of a slave to fame in a way. And this is more
Mhm.
like I'm taking the icon status and I'm making it mine with these
Yeah.
songs.
And she reflected that, both on the tour for this album. This is particularly when she was performing in Russia, and the song from the title track had been
Mm.
made legal, and she performed it. And it was like, "Arrest me, Putin. I don't give a fuck."
un unimaginably fucking based. Just like this is also a moment where like, the legalization of gay marriage was
Mhm.
happening. Like there was a lot of like, this is the Obama era, so obviously it's just like we're having a lot more socially progressive things being brought to the forefront of cultural conversations in a way that it hadn't been like, and with the internet too, it's like this is the first time where it feels like all of these things were just inescapable, all caps, bolded. You can't get away from this. We're going to be talking about this. People are going to be writing about this. This is no longer a dregs of society. Like, you have to really look to find, you got to find the subtext. It's like, no, we are officially in the text era of queer pop music, and everybody
Mhm.
just kind of has to deal with it. And it's also going to be really like sacrilegious. We've got a song like Judas, which is also just yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
fucking banger.
Underrated too. This is a song that I was like, I did not know. a lick about. And then I just kind of threw on and was just like, why the fuck hasn't anybody told me how fucking good this song is?
It was one of those things where, like the music video came out and she was playing Mary Magdalene and, riding on
Mm-hmm.
a motorcycle with Jesus and his crown of thorns and, reaching all over him. And it was controversial, perhaps not to the extent that other pop stars have had controversy with the Catholic Church in the past. But
Not quite the Sinead O'Connor level,
yeah,
but
not quite being condemned by the Vatican, but still poking the bear a lot in a ways that
oh,
got
for
people
sure.
pissed
I mean,
off.
and we've got Bloody Mary, we've got Electric Chapel. It's like she's really leaning into that. And again, as a closeted queer person attending Catholic school at this time, this was like, I wonder why I'm remembering all of these songs. Like,
Yeah.
man, these just, I just like the music. The music's just good, guys. Like, I don't know. And I appreciate the image crafting, and I appreciate that even the songs on here that I don't love, like, I don't think that there's even like a mediocre song on here. I think that this album actually has a really like sustained hit rate. It just also is kind of dwarfed by a couple of its highlights, but even
Yeah.
songs like Government Hooker, for instance, which, like, if I'm honest, isn't super much of a song, but is so funny, I don't care.
I love that
It's
song.
exactly like it's just kind of fun to put on, and like there's a quality to it where it's like it's not super like musical even. Like there are several songs on here that just kind of feel like, well, parts of vamping in a drag performance. Like it just
It's a
feels
great drag track, honestly.
it is
You even get the audio clip of our bodyguard at the very end.
yeah. it's it is an unserious album in a way that takes the unseriousness and makes it fun and silly in a way that like I feel like queer people instantly kind of got in a way that's like, yeah, all our pop music doesn't need to be this kind of like straight-laced thing. It can kind of be like silly and whatevery too.
Mhm.
It can be kind of flexible. It can be kind of like it doesn't kind of have to adhere to this very rigidly structured. It's just like compare this to the Katy Perry hits of the time that were coming out parallel, and it's just like
Yeah.
you have these really tightly structured, really memorable like kind of pop hits, and then you have these songs that are these like jagged, weird kind of like again campy things that are just like they're very far from what you would imagine to be like really popular pop music, but
Mhm.
it's memorable for the exact same reason.
Yeah, you can have these extremely popular songs like Born This Way, uh, The Edge of Glory, and then you can have deeply silly songs like Americano that end up, on the Puss in Boots soundtrack.
I need your Italian American opinion about Americano. That was the first thought I had when listening to that song.
It's a
I was like,
super
does
fun
this make
stuff,
you feel seen?
completely. Uh, and then what honestly might be my favorite song out of all of these on the album is Hair, which is
Hair
like
is
the
great.
most sincere power ballad on the list.
Oh yeah, it's like this is an album that I feel like takes a lot from kind of, well, I mean, 80s hair metal power ballads. Like that is
Yeah.
more or less what this song is. And it's so fantastic. Like it's such a confident, such a like you cannot tell me shit. I am me. Fuck everything else in the entire world. And but it's so like, it's also like, you got the character in the song kind of like addressing their parents and stuff. And it's just all about, just again, being yourself. Very simple sentiment, but it is about screaming it as loudly as possible.
Yeah, which spoke a lot to me back then.
Oh, I imagine. Like I feel like that my favorite song on here is very boringly The Edge of Glory, which to my in my opinion is
That's a fantastic fucking song.
not only is it again unstoppably big sounding, like this is a big sounding song in the way that like Cher's biggest songs to me are
Hmm.
like God, this is the gayest I've ever been on this channel. Appropriately, but like it is the like I am at like you could put a Gaga cover of If I Could Turn Back Time on this album and it would feel completely at
Oh
home.
yeah,
Edge
it
Edge
would
of
fit.
Glory
Well,
is the best victory lap end of the album. This is the fireworks explosions fucking like you will not forget. this moment for as long as you live kind of song, and I'm all about that kind of shit. The big like for every bit as inspired by classic pop it's like Freddie Mercury and Queen too.
Yeah. That fucking saxophone. Oh my God.
Oh, it's so good. Anytime a classic instrumental choice, which pop up on these songs, like the more and more Lady Gaga, like just kind of the more like I guess successful she becomes, the more she can put risks like saxophone solos at the end of it. We were
Yeah.
getting this in pop in this decade later as far as M83's Midnight City. Like the saxophone just reigned supreme in this decade. And I
Mhm.
look, some people think it's overdone. Those people are boring.
Arguably,
Give me
arguably,
saxophones.
arguably peaked in 2015, admittedly.
Peaked in
Uh,
2015. What song? What am I thinking of?
Come on, you know it.
Saxophone. Hmm. I'm gonna feel really stupid because I can't immediately think of what it is.
Carly Rae Jepsen.
Oh yeah, Carly Rae. Yeah, 10th anniversary. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh for sure. Oh for sure. That was, and hey, this was a considerable amount of time before all that because this is just another aspect in which Gaga is a trailblazer. And
Yeah,
I I think it's important to that like this is also an album that I do feel like this is kind of a moment where we do see the kind of I guess indie kind of music writer scene not turn on Lady Gaga, but like she stops becoming cool and becomes a little bit more of what is thought of as the establishment with this album because it is
yes.
so big, so successful, and is obviously now, getting along with a crowd that is not pushed to the forefront super often. So
Hmm.
it is seen as though this album kind of makes concessions in order to appeal to the largest crowd possible, which I just kind of think is an inevitable, like, this is just what happens when a successful pop star does
Yeah.
their successful pop star thing. And I would
Hmm.
argue that this album is better for it. It's like there are a select group of albums where it's like, this is Lady Gaga's Red, where it's just like
Yeah.
everything kind of meets at this sort of centrifuge of everything she will make from here on out will start from Born This Way in one way or
Yeah.
another, but I feel like the DNA is so rock solid that it's a good album to build a foundation on.
Yeah. Red's actually a very good comparison point just because, again, you have that slightly sprawling track list, you have all these
Hmm.
different influences going on. And yeah, it was this movie where she was like on her third or fourth straight year of unparalleled success. So, people start to turn a little bit. They get a little bit annoyed, they get a little bit
They're
irritated.
like, oh,
Uh,
the meat dress lady, or oh, like whatever. Like it's almost like the image of Gaga and her music became separate entities entirely for this
yeah,
period. It was
honestly, they
very strange.
and especially a lot of the controversy around this album, of course, comes from Born This Way sounding similar, not the exact same, but very similar to Madonna's hit song Express Yourself from Like a Prayer, which has a very similar theme of, just loving who you are, embracing it, celebrating it.
Hmm.
And that got to the point where on tour, Madonna was performing Express Yourself. Then she added in Born This Way. And then she would close out this medley with the song She's Not Me,
Ooh, ooh,
which is
and
like a direct shots fired.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but Gaga, has she ever been like antagonistic towards anybody in this respect
Not,
ever?
not really. And she loves Madonna. She's talked about
Obviously.
how Madonna has influenced her clearly enough and has talked
And
about that.
I do feel like it's because this fall from grace is so much less pronounced than like again like Madonna, like she's definitely kind of had her own form of ego collapse in the last 20 or so years that's led to some interesting creative choices, and but like it's never been to the severity of a Kanye, for example. So
Yeah.
nobody's like,
Yeah.
or even like Lauryn Hill, where people were just
Mhm.
like, oh, it's a real damn shame what happened to this person. Where it's just
Yeah.
like, no, Madonna's like, she's kind of stayed under the radar enough to get away with being a little bitchy here and there, but like
Mhm.
that's just
A,
kind of
a
her.
little crazy.
she's always
some
been a
moments.
little like she's like the original, ego pop star there with Michael Jackson. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, understandable, but like I commendable for Gaga of just being like, yeah, I love Madonna and just kind of, water off a duck's back in this regard because she really was
Absolutely.
getting shit from like everybody. This is the period of time where like South Park was making fun of Lady Gaga and like all of this kind of shit for reasons that like in hindsight are like it kind of feels like everybody doesn't realize that she's also in on the joke.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
We're
it's
literally
odd.
having this moment all over again with Sabrina Carpenter, where no one sees
Oh,
that she's on.
Sabrina is a perfect person to bring up where it's just like it's so heavy on the emphasis of this person is winking at the camera so hard and it is just going completely over people's heads. Like
Yeah,
everybody is just like, "Oh my God." And it's like
man,
you all
child
are
sets
Feather
back
Rubble
feminism in
and
50
Porky
years or
Pig.
whatever. I'm like, please.
That that fucking
Her,
controversy over that Sabrina Carpenter album cover is so fucking funny in hindsight because it's just like you all would faint if you were around for Madonna. Like you would have absolutely pissed yourselves in the
I
80s.
had the sex coffee table book. I will show these people and they will drop that about our back.
It's like even just Google image search Madonna and you'll probably be like, "Oh, I didn't know that picture existed." There's a
Uh,
couple.
you should see
Uh
the pictures of her making out with Isabella Rossellini in a suit.
oh, that happy pride. Fucking woof. But in this time period, this is when I feel like this is like 2012 and 2013 is an interesting transition time. It's when I'm
Mhm.
going into high school and I'm very aware of the world around me because I'm getting out of Catholic school and I'm going into a public school system and I'm interacting with people who, suddenly I've found my entire friend group is queer. Funny how that
Yeah,
works. And I'm paying attention to stuff and I feel like at this time period this is where the internet has made art and culture as big, as inescapable, as loud, and as talked about as much as it has ever been before. It is like because we have this avenue where literally fucking anybody with a phone or a computer can give their opinion at any given
yep,
moment. We are like, it is this scary accelerationist kind of like everybody has to have an opinion about everything now.
yeah,
And artists are taking advantage of that by being like, I need to constantly be in headlines. I need to constantly be talked about so that I am still successful. Because this begins the era of if you are only talked about for a month, that's the only month you're going to be remembered for. You have to
hmm,
keep coming back. You like the way that music charts are working, like before, like the CD era and before, the way that music charts worked was nonsense. Like it is literally shit that people made up. People were calling record stores and being like, "Hey, what's selling?" And then whatever answer they would give would
yeah,
be the number one for whatever they were reporting on. Like it was literally just a bunch of shit that people were saying. Like the only dominant presence in the 90s that like was able to kind of keep that up without seeing a dip is, well, I mean, ironic considering that he was kind of making up for his own self-perceived dip from Thriller, is Michael Jackson, who made
right.
two of his biggest failure albums that were the most expensive and successful albums of that decade. And it's right before the internet. And I
Hmm.
don't think that that's an accident. So
Yeah.
I feel like Lady Gaga has realized this. And in these 2 years after Born This Way, she's like, I need to make the album that is simply the most me. And then that is
Yeah.
how we get my personal favorite Lady Gaga album, Art Pop. The very controversial, very often derided, like this is as close as Lady Gaga gets to making what is colloquially called now a train record, an album that, regardless of how successful it is, it sheds a huge swath of its own fan base because of
Mhm.
something, because of
Yeah.
a change of direction, because of a lack of change of direction or whatever. So, Cole, why don't you tell us a little bit about the lead up and even a little bit after the release of Art Pop, what was going on? Because in terms of what Gaga was doing to promote this album, this to me is the peak of absolute sheer fucking insanity for this woman. Because this
I
shit's
mean,
crazy.
she had done, crazy shit prior. I mean, the meat dress bleeding to death on stage, the VMAs for Born This Way, where she was carried down the red carpet and the giant egg, and then, came out the egg. But 2013 in particular was this pretty seismic shift in pop music. On the underground level, you had people listening to The Weeknd and starting to elevate him up.
Hmm.
Uh, you had Lord just burst onto the scene with Royals, which was the number one hit for I think 10 weeks or something.
I think you can say that Royals is the definitive, basically the cultural point at which explains why this album was not successful, is
Yeah.
because Royals was about to become successful.
hmm And it was not really just Gaga. You had all these other pop stars at the moment crashing out, twerking on Robin Thicke at the VMA,
Yeah, Miley.
appropriating
Yeah.
culture, all that, swinging naked on the wrecking ball.
You couldn't. Isn't that still to this day the most tweeted about instance of like all time?
I think that might be, honestly.
That's crazy. That's fucking nuts. And you look back on it in hindsight and you're just like, that Miley shit is small potatoes compared to what Gaga ended up doing.
Right?
Like, it got nothing.
But
Nothing.
2013 was this year of, Miley and Katie and Gaga just all doing excessive, ridiculous stuff. Aurora
Katie was
was
doing Dark
there.
Horse and shit, where it was like she was dressing up like Cleopatra and collaborating with rappers that she had no business collaborating with. Like, frankly, if time has done anything, it has been far, far less kind to Katy Perry's sophomore slump album and way kinder to this album.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. So 2013 was really this time of the excess falling away, people wanting a darker sound, more liminal sounds, this more subdued mood.
The crash out from the recession pop of just like, hey, we're poor and now we're kind of all upset about it.
Right. So, you had all these pop divas putting out these excessive albums that just didn't go anywhere, didn't go anywhere, didn't go anywhere. And then, of course, at the very end of the year, you have Beyonce's self-titled album as the kill shot to all of those.
Oh, just what a insanely savvy, insanely risky move in hindsight. Like
Mhm.
the fact that that album, I believe, was also like, was that not like stealth release? Didn't that just pop up on iTunes
That was
without like,
a that was a surprise release on
wow.
iTunes on a Friday because that
Oh,
that was when that was when the global release date for music was still Tuesdays. So she
mm-hmm.
dropped halfway through the tracking week, was just like, surprise, here's a new album with music videos for every single one.
The visual art aspect of it is becoming all the more important. It feels like music
Right.
videos are kind of at their peak right now. I think that the idea of the music video has since faded ever since like right at 2019 is kind of where it feels like they stopped mattering as much as they used to. But like it feels like we're in the build up to sicko mode, which to me
Yeah.
is the music video that was like, oh my God, you could not take 5 steps without seeing that music video somewhere or hearing
Yeah.
that song somewhere.
Yeah. And I blame Beyonce for music videos not mattering as much anymore because a certain somebody is holding them back.
I mean, you you might have a point here, but the point is that like we are coming at a point where it's like Lady Gaga is about to do something so big, so bold, so
Yeah.
maximalist, and so gaudy, and the
Mhm.
world is about to just being like, we have stopped caring about this shit
We
completely.
are
Like
depressed.
overnight, we're done.
Right. And this all, of course, starts with the release of Applause, the album's lead single,
Hmm.
which her at her most Warhol, just goofy nonsense.
A
And the thing
very
that,
silly, very very just strange song. It does kind of
Very
feel like it's
bizarre.
drawing on old ideas a little bit, but it's
Hmm.
also such a like sound wise, it's such a bizarre sounding song that I'm
It
kind of
is.
transfixed by it.
And of course, the big thing about this at the time was that the song and its music video were coming out on the same day as Roar by Katy Perry.
Mm,
So, the fandom war fed into each other, who got the number one debut, who got the number one debut. It ended up being Katy because she made a much safer song that, moms across America could listen to and feel
which
empowered
song was
by.
that?
Roar.
Uh-oh.
I got the
Wow.
eye of the tiger.
Look, applause. I do think applause is a great song. It's nowhere near my favorite Lady Gaga hit, but man, applause demolishes Roar. Like just
Yeah,
fucking
no
steamrolls.
question.
Yeah, that is not a comparison that has been kind to Miss Catherine Hudson.
No, no, not one bit. Not one bit. Who has really turned into the Cyndi Lauper of our times.
It's like you're 100% correct and also a kind of mean to Cyndi Lauper.
It is kind of mean to Cyndi Lauper, but
Cyndi Lauper didn't go to space.
right. No, it's no, as she
She
stayed on.
sat her ass down and listened.
But there was this kind of crash out that was happening with Gaga at the time. I mean, whenever she talks about this record, which she doesn't do a lot anymore, because
Hmm.
the darkest time of her life, she doesn't like talking about it all that much. She was heavily medicated. She was, doing every substance you known to man. It was just doing all of this insane shit to promote it. Gaga in Space 2015, which never happened.
There was a
The,
rocket though. It just
yeah, the
only
flying
floated a little
dress.
bit. It just
Yeah,
kind of went around and then went back down and was
the
like,
floating,
"Oh,
the floating drone dress, throwing
uh,
people, the Muppets, RuPaul.
wow, I forgot about the Muppets. Oh man. Live performances where she was being thrown up on. We can't
Yeah,
forget that. We can't
yeah.
forget that.
I think it was neon colored vomit. It was like neon yellow.
Yes.
Cannot forget that. It,
And like she was and she wasn't like the best part about watching footage of all this stuff happening is the fucking commitment. Like Gaga is I mean, she's got the fucking perfect poker face. She's like
yeah.
everything feels like it's all according to plan.
Mhm. She was so committed to it that people were like, "Is she okay?" Like,
The answer's no.
yeah.
It was definitely no.
In hindsight, it was extremely, extremely fucking obvious that she was not okay. Uh, no one in their right state of mind would allow R. Kelly onto their album.
Nah, I think that's a good window to get into the weeds with art pop is that this is an album that like Applause is really the only song that people have kind of taken from this record. Like everything else on here kind of feels like it's been forgotten to time. And in one instance, semi-deservedly, but even then only semi because the song Do What You Want featuring R. Kelly
Yeah.
is unfortunately an absolutely fantastic song.
I hate to say this, but it is really, really good.
And like let again, it's just like yes, obviously R. Kelly has anybody's stock dropped further, but in the way that
And
she is making a very conscious meta commentary on female bodily autonomy, it's
yeah,
almost like this song aging badly made it age better in a
yeah,
way. It's
it
like
makes sense.
it still works. It's like, and I mean, bless, but fucking R.
Yeah,
Kelly could sing. He could really
yeah.
fucking sing, and he sings his fucking ass off on this song.
Yeah, and there was stuff like the canceled music video that was shot by Terry Richardson, a man with allegations of his own all over the place.
It must have been a fucking minefield to have to navigate this when you're already like over medicated and all this shit. But like notably, Art Pop is not released with that song on it anymore. It's like not on updated versions of the vinyl. It's not on the official track list anymore. And
In
yeah,
in
probably for the
2019, it
best.
got like nuked from every streaming service.
Yep.
The remix that she performed on The Voice with Christina Aguilera replacing R. Kelly is still available and
And
is also
solid.
a great version of its own.
Yes, a completely worthwhile successor that like it totally gets the job done.
Yeah.
But even still, the rest of this album to me is like it is Lady Gaga leaning into it's just like this is already an artist who's making her name on being garish. And this album is just like I am going to push this past beyond the limits of taste to a point where like I will actively aggravate people.
I
And
mean, the first song on the album is about, hey, I'm wearing a burqa. I'm wearing a burqa. Look at me.
yes, it's so like in your face. It's so like, and I believe that this actually links to the fact that Gaga took some notes from pop star Björk on this album because there was a companion app released for art pop that like
Oh God, that's
where
right.
she had this little thing like this thing is called your aura and like
Mhm.
that was something. And like I think the most common sentiment that I heard about this album was the first three songs are amazing and then it falls off and never recovers. And I'll come back to that point because I fully disagree with it. But
Mm,
those first, actually, I'll say those first four songs, these are as good as any of the singles that she's released thus
yeah,
far to me. I love Aura. I love Venus. I love GUI so
you are
much.
so much fun.
This song has a rockin' beat to it. I fucking love it. And it also, it plays with that idea of again, sort of female autonomy, but like also like puts a really interesting, very overt kind of queer spin on it. And
Mhm.
it's all about subversion. It's all about taking all of these ideas in your head and just, flipping them around and like what
Yeah,
that says about them. And it's like, it's not boundary pushing shit, but it's effective shit. It's shit that
it,
you feel because this music is not like I feel like I'm making excuses for it when I say this, but it's like music like this is not always meant to be nuanced. It's meant to be loud, it's meant to be big, and it's meant to have big ideas that are supposed to make you think. That's what
yeah,
it's supposed to be about.
yeah. And this is probably the most abrasive of her records, even still to this day. Just
And I mean, like
really
with a
about
song like
chaotic.
Sex Dreams, which like I get why people would be put off by this song. I love this song. This
Oh,
song
I
rocks.
adore this song.
It is like it's lurid, it's shameless, it has so many double entendres your head will spin, but it is again, it is just so thoroughly Gaga that like I can't feel any other way other than admiration. And the real point at which this album really loses people, even some of its fans, is Jules and Drugs. And
Uh,
you are all wrong. I love this song. Fuck the haters. I think this song rocks.
it is insane in the best way possible.
It's insane. It has some of the stupidest guest rap verses I've ever heard. And that's the point. And it's like, it doesn't sacrifice being a lesser song by being a stupider song to me.
Mhm.
Like, it makes that its brand and runs with it in a way that, like, to me, this album is like the heralding of hyperpop, basically like 5 years before any of that shit was popping on the scene. Like, I mean, I will say maybe Charlie XCX was probably starting to like really kind of come into her own around the beginning of the 2010s,
Well,
but
she
not
was getting
quite
her
this
blue
sound
clap
yet.
ready.
Yes, like she wasn't quite the Charlie that like she wasn't Brat Charlie until like past True Romance. This to
Yeah,
me though is like this is the album that you don't get Brat, you don't get the her COVID album or like even fucking what am I thinking of? The self-titled Charlie album. You don't
yeah,
get that album without this one either. There's like the dubstep leanings and some of the production on here is like it's
yeah.
very of its
Oh
time,
God, wine.
but it kind of knocks.
Yeah,
Something
it
about
does.
it. I really
It,
dig it.
it's an extremely dated album, but a really fascinating one because of just how 2013 it sounds like. Like you hear
Oh
like the
yeah.
step on swine, you're like, Ooh, yeah, this was made in a
Swine
tiny place.
is Swine, like I don't like love this song, but I love, like, just again, I love the spirit of it. That's kind of the embodiment of art pop, is that I don't always feel like it's 100% successful, but it's never anything less than fascinating. And also
Yeah.
to me, this is just like, this is the most full her production has basically ever sounded. Like, it
Mhm.
sounds expensive on something like The Fame Monster, but it's also very like, it's very rigid electro synth beats that are kind of skeletal, but they're very blown out, that makes the atmosphere of that. Whereas this is like dense. There's a lot of layers going on here. It's very overwhelming and frankly kind of a psychotically paced album too.
It
But it's
is so bizarre in
but
that
at the
case.
same time, it is an album that gets to the hour mark, and frankly, I don't feel like I would shave any of these songs. Like, honestly, the title track is the only song on here that I think is anything short of great. And I think it's good. It's just that it's
Uh,
less functional as a song is kind of what surrounds it, I guess.
yeah, it feels like a slowing down point, especially after Jewels and Drugs, Manicure, which is so much fun.
Manicure is so great. So great. I mean, again, fucking the lesbians love Lady Gaga, and
And
this is
then,
why.
yep. And then, picks up back again with Swine,
Which
Donatella, which is a
fun.
fucking banger and a half.
And fashion!
Yeah.
Exclamation point! Which I'm always it feels like songs like Fashion almost feel like they're the precedent to shit that's like, it's less tasteless and it's a little bit more classy, but like the campier shit that like Jessie Ware is gonna go on to do. Like
Yeah.
really, really forward thinking shit, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Right. But like Jessie Ware isn't gonna wear a giant brown condom and bring out RuPaul on stage to sing.
No, 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 absolutely
Have you
not.
seen the Muppets Holiday Special?
No, I have. I've seen like one little like clip, I think, as like a joke of Lady Gaga surrounded by the Muppets, and it's that image alone is
Yeah.
fucking
She
hysterical.
performs Venus with Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, and it is psychotic. Like it
Where's
was.
that collab album? Give me that. I will sit through that whole thing easily.
I just remember that clear as day because I watched it. It aired on Thanksgiving 2013, and it was just the most insane thing that you could imagine doing with the Muppets was just throwing Lady Gaga in at the height of her psychic mania and just having her go all out. Like the plot line is that they're doing a variety show, but Miss Piggy's
So
jealous
like
of Gaga the
classic
entire time.
Muppets
It
show
is
shit.
kind of classic Muppets, just antics. But
That's
adding Lady
awesome.
Gaga, making them sing Venus, which is explicitly about sex.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah, there's no
And,
mistaking it.
and you got, Fozzie and Scooter, doing the background vocals. You're like, what is going on?
And you know what? That kind of absurdity and embracing that level of unseriousness, that's why she's endured as long as she has, because her songs have this kind of malleability to them where it's like, yeah, they're unironic bangers, but they're also so silly that they kind of suit multiple functions. Like, it's why, again, it's like you push forward the release of art pop in like 5 years into the future, and this becomes like her fourth best-selling album, probably.
Yeah.
And like nothing will touch those heyday records, but like this is just one of those classic cases of like, you don't get it, but your kids are gonna love it kind of instance. Like, this is
It
also the
does feel
only
like
Lady
that.
Gaga album that I feel like structurally, like, fashion through applause to me is ironclad. Like
Yeah.
every single song there, like in particular, I was very wowed unfortunately by another, I guess, now controversial part of this, is that one of the best songs on this album is now increasingly considered a Romani slur,
I
much
mean, I
like the
mean,
Fleetwood Mac song of the same name that is similarly fantastic.
I mean, we didn't even talk about all the racial names used on Born This Way.
Yeah, that's a little, again, the 2000s were, and the late 2000s and early
Yeah,
2010s were a very
right.
different time. White people they got bold when Barack was in office. They got really bold. And
They
maybe they
did.
should have toned it down just a little bit. Just a
But no, I love that song in particular.
it's no it is truly fantastic, like, and you have disarming moments on this album that kind of flesh out its identity, like Dope.
Yep.
and like which I think is like a show-stopping, like again, it's just like bringing back kind of the Amy Winehouse of it all, where it's just kind
Yeah.
of like, oh, okay, we're really leaning into that
It,
effective, poignant melodrama.
it feels like a younger sibling of Speechless in a lot of ways.
Yes, precisely why I think I dig that song as much as I do. It's just it is a very uncompromising album, and that is going to be what makes or breaks it for you. But to me, it's like this is, Gaga's album where she throws everything at the wall, and it's
It's,
about whether or not your instincts will let you survive this. And
yeah.
thankfully, she took some dusting off after this to be certain, as we'll definitely get into. But
Hmm.
like, I think this album has aged like, I mean, better than wine, frankly. Like, it is like I full, just completely no reservations,
Yeah.
love it front to back, and it does have the leg up on the Fame Monster for me, just being a more complete album experience.
Yeah. And for me, it's still one of the most fascinating records in her arsenal, just because of the time, the place, what led to it, what evolved out of it. It's just this really interesting cultural artifact of the time when Lady Gaga completely lost her fucking mind, which I think helps the album. Like,
Yes.
just to imagine her singing Dope, in the mental state that she was in, like got
Yeah.
forehead.
And I mean, look at the cover of the album, and that tells you everything about it. It's like this is the most Andy Warhol that she has
Yep.
ever appeared. Like literal, actual, like newspaper headlines and classic modern art, and like she's there with the provocative placement of the crystal ball. It's like it is again, it's a fully realized vision. I can completely understand why it's difficult for her to talk about, and it is very like again, it's like those Bowie albums that he made when he was on so much cocaine that he couldn't see straight. And it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I straight up don't
It,
remember
it,
recording that album. And it's like, it's a damn shame because it's probably your best. But like, I
yeah.
get it. Like, I
It,
definitely,
it's the Stephen King going for a mountain of cocaine on it moment.
yes. And naturally, after you hit that kind of critical mass, you have to go from your Stephen King's It to your Stephen King's Dreamcatcher, so to speak. And you gotta detox. You gotta get all of the
Mhm.
bad shit out of you. And I think that this was a decision that like it's one of those really bad instances where like this period of Gaga's career of like 2013, 2014 through, well, frankly 2020 is a moment
Yeah.
that like the stock of her as a cultural presence went like basically got cut in half, but was entirely necessary for her to retain her sanity.
Yeah.
And
You know,
also, she did a lot of very cool things in this period. I don't want to say that she did a bunch of like shit that was like disappointing or not good, but she did a lot of things that were very toned down. She very much muted her presence in culture and in her music in order to be a little bit more straight-laced and lean into some of her instincts that have always been there, but have never
yeah.
been the focus.
Yeah. And, she had to change gears a little bit. While our pop debuted high and did well, it sold like 250,000 copies its first week. Born This Way had opened up to 1 million copies in its first week.
Hmm.
So a 75% drop is extremely harsh. It did not last as long. And frankly, it became associated with the idea of a flop album. Uh,
Until Witness came along, it was like the flop album.
Wait.
It was like Witness is now the flop album, and before it was Art Pop, and the
Well,
difference
now it's
is,
143.
oh yeah, that's true. That's true. That Katie does have, and that's the thing. I think 143 actually does work as the flop album a lot more because you go back and you listen to Witness, and it's like not a lot of those songs are great, but that is very much Katy Perry's Art
Yeah,
Pop in the sense of like this is your identity crisis album, and
yeah,
like there's a lot of interesting things happening on that album, even if they aren't successful things. So like
yeah,
we're seeing a lot of the old guard of the 2010s really start to falter. So very smartly, I feel like she pivots and uses her instincts and leans into something that is a bit more, well, clean cut.
yeah,
And in the immediate following year, Lady Gaga does one of the strangest things I've ever seen a pop star do, and that she collaborates and tours with classic singer-songwriter Tony Bennett.
Huh. They had met at a gala back in 2011 and had talked for a while about doing a jazz album together. And
Hmm.
honestly, this was the moment where she had to go and do that to rescue her career in a sense.
And fun story, my mom saw her on this tour that she
Really?
did with Tony Bennett. Yes, and what's even better, she saw this tour with my grandfather because my grandfather was a fan of Tony Bennett. So
Uh,
my fucking 40-year-old mother who is, not the type of person who gets down to Lady Gaga all of the
yeah.
time. She's a bit more 80s and 90s oriented when it comes to her pop music. But like she takes my elderly carpenter grandfather to go see that,
Uh,
and they both have an incredible time.
yeah.
They talked about this for months after they saw the show. Like the chemistry between Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga was apparent to even people who could barely even see, apparently, because like these two had such a fucking they had such chemistry on display. Like
Yeah.
they had great banter. They were constantly like they were singing old classic show tunes and stuff. And it's like, yeah, this has a very limited appeal. But if you're a star who's like, I need to get sober, I need to get my head on straight, and it's like, obviously, the work of somebody like Amy Winehouse was informing her, and it's like, Amy Winehouse's death cast a long shadow over this decade where people were like,
Yeah, it
if you
did.
do not sober up, look what's going to happen to you. And I feel like
Right.
she more or less knew that, and I feel like this was very necessary for
Yeah,
both.
especially because Amy Winehouse became like the ultimate tragic warning story in pop music because there's still like so many people that stand there like, what if she hadn't passed? Like, God, we
Hmm.
missed on so much because she OD'd.
I mean,
We
like a
missed out.
crazy amount of music that would have been completely unpredictable because of how multi-talented somebody was, and how people still don't even know that Amy Winehouse is like, she wasn't just classically trained. It's like that
Yeah,
woman was a walking one-woman band. She could do
yeah.
everything. She would have made a rap album with Lupe Fiasco. Like, we found that out last year. That would have happened. That's insane.
We missed out on so much. So I think Gaga really took that to heart and did this 180 to help save not just herself but her own image as well because people had gotten so burnt out on the meat dress and the eggs and the flying dresses and the vomit and the
And
excess.
if you use this as connective tissue, it makes this next step she takes make a lot more sense. And especially when you compare it to the other pop star that we mentioned who was kind of having a similar crash out in this time period as well, that being Miley Cyrus. Because
Yep.
around a kind of similar window time frame,
Yeah.
these very, very kind of like traditionally thought of like these are pop stars in the most classic sense of the word both decide to pivot to slower country pop music.
Yeah, they did. Well, we'll
And
get to
we
that
get
later, but
Joanne in 2016
yeah.
after we do, of course, get the 2014 collaboration album between Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga, where they're doing a lot of standards. But this is the next True Blue Lady Gaga album, which is fascinating,
It,
honestly.
it, it came at a really interesting time because the year beforehand uh, was her big revival moment in a sense
Mhm.
because she had written a song with Diane Warren. Uh,
Yeah.
the, you.
The eternal second place, Diane Warren.
Oh, God help us. I hope she wins the next time, especially because next time she gets
So
nominated.
you can stop
Um,
seeing movies because they get nominated
I,
for
I
Best
have watched,
Original Song.
God, I've been watching every single film nominated at the Oscars for like the past 8 or 9 years at this point, even down to like best.
Diane Warren has led you places that you wouldn't go with a gun.
With the tank. Well,
The
so I watch
Flaming Hot
everything down to
Cheetos
like
movie, for instance.
God, the Mila Kunis, Reba McEntire drug addict movie.
Oh, God, I haven't thought about that in so long. Oh my
The
God.
insane anthology movie she made about womanhood, which is so insane, so insane.
You
But
are
yeah,
braver than the troops for
but
your letterboxed watched list. I mean,
I watch everything down to like best animated short film, like no stone goes unturned. But and what's funny is that this is really the song that kickstarted Diane coming back to the Oscars every single year. Because she had gotten a song nomination for Beyond the Lights, but before that, the last song she was nominated from was the one from Pearl Harbor back in 2001.
oh God. That makes Diane Warren such a sad figure in modern music of just like she's been doing fucking like she's been trying to eat fucking Celine Dion's leftovers for like 2 decades now.
'Cause, I mean, God, like her first song nomination was "Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now" from Mannequin.
Oh my God, that's so long. Like imagine what other sort of like people who've done the acting or just like the filmmaking pop star like thing. Like imagine compare like Diane Warren stacking what she's done against like Barbara Streisand. Like imagine doing that and the severe ego death you immediately suffer.
The poor woman would die immediately. I don't
Which
know how this turns into the Diane Warren hour all of a sudden, but oh yeah, so
look, we are also leaving no stone unturned.
yeah,
That said, I would would there be any signs that like presaged this in any way? Because like even with
not
like the
really.
Tony Bennett collab makes a lot of sense in hindsight when you add what
Yeah,
was going on and things that she had like she clearly would have made an album that leaned more into show tune style stuff
yeah,
and it would have done pretty well because Lana Del Rey was still kicking and being really successful and what have you. So that was
yeah,
kind of an inevitability. But this is just a sudden like this fucking very Italian American pop star is suddenly like, "Oh, country music.
yeah.
Okay."
Yeah, because she had made that song for The Hunting Ground, which is a documentary about rape on college campuses, performed it at the Oscars. The song was introduced by the current vice president at the time, a Mr. Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. This was before his reign
Uh
was mush. Uh, and, they brought survivors out on stage, and it was this whole big moment. And then they lose to Sam Smith's Bond theme.
the Yeah, I'll say it. It's the worst Bond theme. Uh, totally like people. I remember people being real down on the Alicia Keys and Jack White one when that came out, and like, yeah, that movie's bad, but that song's
That
great.
song rocks. That
It
song is
walks
good.
like dog walks the Sam Smith one. Like
Yeah.
totally fucking destroys it. Like just no thank you to any of that. That totally deserved to win over him.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. But at that same ceremony, the Academy was celebrating the 50th anniversary of The Sound of Music. So
Ah,
they
yes.
figured, it's time to have a medley. And they asked Gaga to sing, a medley of My Favorite Things, Edelweiss, Climb Every Mountain. And it really struck people's attention because I think they hadn't noticed Gaga in a while. So
Yeah,
to see her come
reminds
out
them.
in this glamorous white gown, the long white hair just all the way down, and
She looks
just
like a person.
yeah, and, like, and she still had her tattoos visible, so she still had a little touch of edge to her.
Oh
But
yeah.
just sing a medley of these classic Roger and Hammerstein songs, and to do it so well that it just immediately caught people off guard, like. It blew my mother away when we were watching the Oscars. She was like, "Wait, when did Gaga start doing all this?" And
In
it was
hindsight, go ahead.
And it was just like this crucial moment of, oh yeah, she is classically trained and she's not going to let you forget it.
To me, this moment in hindsight is a classic case of right time, wrong album. And it's not to say I don't think this album has merits. I think that Joanne is a fascinating artifact and a very pleasant country pop little excursion.
Yeah.
It's just it lacks urgency. It lacks kind of a bite and it lacks the conceptual vision of her other stuff. And it kind of ends up flirting with pop that's so much that it feels like the pivot feels bizarrely underbaked, but also
Yeah.
like there's too much of it to not turn away people from country music in general because like
Mhm.
this is the you're right. It was the perfect moment for her to come back and remind everyone like, "Yo, I'm really fundamentally talented." And the fact that she appeared in that white dress and was not like, looking like a robot on stage, that's a really good image to have in the more minimalist moment where people can just be like, "Oh, hey, look, a beautiful woman," and just
Mhm.
kind of roll with it.
Yeah, be like,
And
oh, she's hugging Julie Andrews. How cute.
yeah, exactly. I think this album certainly has moments. I think that Sinner's Prayer, Million Reasons, and Joanne are straight up great songs. I really like all three of those.
Yeah.
Uh and everything else is good. Median, it is a solid little time. It's just kind of a classic case of like it's not even that this sound doesn't suit Gaga. It just kind of feels like it's a bit of an identity crisis that where she's
It's
like
no, you
uh,
finish.
it just sort of feels like she's doing a lot of different things on this album and doesn't exactly know where to put her focus.
Yeah. It feels like the seed of this was planted back with you and I on Born This Way,
Yes,
which is, like country rock, big ass ballads,
swagger to it.
hmm Very,
And it's also like it doesn't have enough of a foothold in country to appeal to country music. Because, like, as we kind of
yeah.
mentioned, there was kind of a moment happening where, like, Miley did this, Gaga was doing this, Beyonce came out with a country song on her absolutely monolithic Lemonade. And, like,
hmm
it was kind of a moment where country music sort of became more of pop music than it became country music. Like,
Yeah.
actually, I was just talking about this on a video I recently released with Jen, where we talked about a Miranda
Yeah.
Lambert album that came out around the same time, which frankly does not sound a million miles away from what this album ends up sounding like. But
Yeah.
it's a moment where, like, the country audience is not going to like this, the pop audience is not going to like this, and even the Gaga fans are like, there's not a lot of what they traditionally look for on here. There's stuff that's fun, there's stuff that's kind of light on its feet, but it lacks the kind of impact, the jagged edges, the personality of her previous stuff.
Yeah. And the song on here that gets the closest to that is John Wayne.
And it's again swagger.
And it's super fun song, immediately followed by Dancing in Circles, which Beck was a co-writer on, and I always forget about that detail.
That this is like the period where Beck started doing shit for like a lot of other people, and I feel like this was kind of endemic of like his music did not sound a million miles away from this album, and
Yeah.
suffered far greater than this album did because of it.
Mhm.
Um,
Stealing
but
people's memories.
Yeah. Well, we also do have a very notable collaboration on here. We have a duet with
Yeah.
Florence Welsh of Florence of the Machine, who
Mhm.
is kind of like a sort of stealth B plus tier pop star from this era that's like
Yeah.
never really, like kind of peaked with Dog Days Are Over in the popular consciousness, but like
Mhm.
has still been there the whole time and has
Yeah.
never really like wavered and never like fallen artistically. And I feel like there's
She
kind of
she
a
she is for me who Taylor Swift is for a lot of people.
And I feel like that's super understandable because her album hit ratio is crazy. Like you go
Yeah.
back to those early Florence albums, like the first three in particular, like I think
Mhm.
those are all stellar. In fact, if we're
Yeah.
talking about pop stars from the 2010s, she like I may pick her above like everybody in terms of just that run
Yeah.
because it's great. It really is
Mhm.
great. And she has a kind of kinship with Gaga in a kind of bombastic way that doesn't really show through on the collab, but like still spiritually makes sense that she would seek out her to collaborate with in general.
Yeah. No, they're a great pair, and it makes sense. I do wish that it was just a slightly better song.
It's a fine song, you know? Like actually, you know what it does? It needs more Florence, honestly. Like I
Yeah,
feel like she needs to be on here more. I feel like they like if they brought out like a, you know, doubled up and made like a final chorus repeat where maybe they harmonized a little more. I feel like that would have probably brought the house down. But
yeah.
instead it's very much like, oh, she comes on here, she sings a little bit and it's good. It's fun. But like, man, I would have loved for Gaga to do some of the stuff that she was just about to do because I kind of feel like it takes a couple notes from Florence in terms of
Yeah, absolutely.
scale, but it's an interesting, and it is in pockets a kind of more personal record, but it feels, I guess the word I would use to describe it, which sounds more negative than I want it to, is it's kind of an uncomfy album. It's an album where you
Yeah.
really feel like she's struggling to kind of verbalize the point of what
Uh,
creative decisions she's making.
a lot of this comes to light in the documentary that followed on
Hmm.
Netflix, Gaga 5'2", where she talked about the influence of the album. In particular, the album's named after her aunt Joanne, who died of, I believe, a blood disease, but died before
Yeah.
Gaga was born. So Gaga never met her. So there's not really, it's not an Uncle Johnny moment, you know?
Hmm. It's yeah, I completely like it's almost like that naming the album after that is kind of endemic of the album's identity of just like it's a connection to someone that you don't know and
Yeah.
thus feels really kind of intimate and in a way you can't properly articulate. So like I respect this move
Mhm.
immensely. I enjoy it a little bit less than I respect it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still songs on here I like the two that I mentioned. The lead single, "Perfect Illusion," is just an absolute banger.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. I completely agree. That's a
Yeah.
song that I feel like would not be super like out of place on just kind of any other Gaga album. Like I can't quite put it in an exact place, but like, you know, touch up the production a little bit and yeah,
Mhm.
I can
But
see
yeah,
it.
just like that moment where like the pitch goes up at the very end is just
Yeah.
fucking gold.
That's like a classic Gaga. Like that's like a great sort of like key change-esque moment that really reminds you it's like, oh, you know, her instincts are still really, really strong. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's no better showcased on the fact that her next big moment, culturally speaking and career-wise, was A Star Is Born in
Yeah.
2018, which this is so strange to me how like I know that like a lot of things like in 2018 and 2019 were very easily memory hold because of COVID being such a big
Yeah.
thing that feels like it dwarfed everything that was big about what immediately preceded it. But I
Hmm.
feel like A Star Is Born in like the first like it coming out and like a month before the next year's Oscars, it felt like that movie was going to dominate the planet for a while. It could not be stopped.
Hmm.
It's a remake of a Hollywood classic that's been remade before, and it's always been kind of a star vehicle. Like the first one is help me out
So
here.
so here's the thing about A Star Is Born. The
Yes, classic
original
cinephile. We give us the history lesson on A Star Is
so
Born.
the original film is called What Price Hollywood, and that came out in 1932. You have the
Yes.
1907 version, which is dubbed A Star Is Born and stars Janet Gaynor, the first Best Actress winner at the Academy Awards. Not for that film, but like 10 years prior.
Yes.
And in 1954, you get a version with Judy
Judy
Garland
Garland.
in
Yeah, that's the one I'm
this
more
film,
familiar with.
which is one of the best films in the 1950s. Judy is fucking spectacular in that movie. Just
Arguably like her
unbelievably good.
defining role, like other than obviously Wizard.
Dorothy, yeah. But
Yeah.
just spectacular. And then you get the 1976 version, uh, which was not directed by Barbara Streisand, but might as well been. Right
Yeah.
how things went with the director on set. But that is when the story transfers from being about actors in Hollywood in the studio system to rock music and country music, because she has Chris Christopherson as the romantic
Yes.
lead in that movie.
A
Um,
lot of people don't actually know that Chris Christopherson, the actor, was in fact an incredibly big country musician who was actually in a country supergroup with Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson, the Highwaymen, which is kind of a relic now because nobody fucking talks about it. But yeah,
yeah,
Chris
I
Christopherson,
only know him as an actor because he
yeah,
did so
yeah.
much.
I was actually kind of surprised to learn it myself whenever I did, but I was like, oh yeah, okay. But I like that kind of observation. It does kind of switch of being like it became like it was like a starlet vehicle that then became a vehicle to
Yeah.
talk about a very specific issue that the movie ushered in itself.
hmm And then, so, you have the 30s version, you have the 50s version, you have the 70s version. You have this weird blip in the 90s where they think about doing it. They think, let's get Jennifer Lopez and Will Smith. And
Oh boy.
I would love to see that version. I would love to see what timeline that is.
In the respect that you are one of the people that I would love to Zoom that hypothetical movie with and get really drunk and watch because A Star is Born starring Jennifer Lopez sounds like it would be a fucking disaster.
It probably would be. But so we kind of don't get one in the 90s. There is the bodyguard, which is kind of what has to pass as the
And if
sport
you do
born of
count it, becomes the most successful version of this on the merit of its soundtrack sales alone.
that album is in every home in America.
Unstoppable. In every used CD store I have ever
Mhm.
been to, there are 9 copies of this on CD, on vinyl, on any like I'm pretty sure you could
Yeah.
find tape deck copies of this fucking thing. Like it's everywhere.
I'm sure that because of Whitney's cover, Dolly Parton probably built all of Dollywood just from that
Those
movie.
royalties were probably insane. Like, I'm pretty sure we can thank the COVID vaccine to the bodyguard if we trace it back. Thanks, Dolly.
And so then they think about it again for the 2000s.
Hmm.
They get really close to doing it at the end of the 2000s, the early 10s. Clint Eastwood, Leonardo DiCaprio, Beyonce.
Again, I don't know how good this movie would be because Clint's hit rate is as inconsistent as they come, but man, would I want to see it. Man,
and,
do I want to see that movie.
and then that did change, when she got pregnant with Blue Ivy and had to drop out. Um,
Hmm.
I guess Glitter also counts as a Star is Born for the 2000s. Everyone's Mariah
Poor
Carey.
Mariah.
She bounced back. It's fine.
Yeah, she's
She had
fine.
the
She's
biggest
fine.
bounce back of all time, frankly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, look at the woman. I'm pretty like, how old is she? And she looks like, I mean, like, does she
That
like
that is
devour the
that is
souls of virgins to stay young or something? That
well,
shit's
she
crazy.
says, she doesn't have birthdays. She has anniversaries, eternally 12 or whatever. And we actually don't know how old she is. It's either 1968 or 1969. No one's really
That's
sure of the birth
crazy.
certificate. It's very chic. It's very Joan Crawford. We have no idea how old Joan Crawford was when she died either. But she was
Wow. I mean, queen
pre
shit.
birth certificate. But so
Going
you
out
get
the way they lived.
you get Gaga eventually going back into acting. She had done stuff for the Muppets. I think she might have been in one of the Muppet movies, if I remember right. Uh, Machete, of course. And then, her first big thing is American Horror Story, particularly the hotel season,
Oh
where
yeah.
she plays the head vampire running the
Which
hotel or whatever.
like I my fiance and I sat through almost the entirety of American Horror Story, and I can
God.
I can tell you the highlights as the show goes on are a lot more waning. But man, whenever Lady Gaga was on screen, it was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is she doing in the best way possible? I was like, this. It feels like she is the only person in that season of the show who knows what show she's in.
Yeah.
Everybody else is really trying to do things like in a straight lace kind of way. And meanwhile, she's in the corner being like, y'all motherfuckers ever heard of camp? Jesus.
I gave that show so many chances every single
It's
season, and it just always would crash.
Cole, the idea of you watching the first season of that show is so funny to me because I'm of the opinion that the first season, which we actually do have a video about, that the first season of American Horror Story is one of the most technically disastrous seasons of television I've ever seen. Like on a production level, that thing is borderline incompetent. Like I'm
More or
halfway
less.
convinced that the storytelling in season 1 of that show is so poor that it kind of convinced people that it was semi-art housey and weird and avant-garde because it's so poorly edited and shot,
Yeah,
and that actually adds to its allure.
more or less. And then, of course, you had Jessica Lange at the beginning of that series, just having so much fun. And
Eating the role for breakfast. Like there's at least like one actor in every
yeah,
season of that show who's like completely aware of just like I need to just not even give a single shit. I
yeah.
cannot care. I'm just gonna do this full throated. And Lady
You
Gaga
just
is
gotta
one of those
embrace
seldom
it.
few people.
You
Like
know,
she brings it.
yeah, like there's not gonna be a swimming pool, you stupid slut. There won't even be a house. But Gaga joins on season 5. The bloom has, of course, come off the rose on the show at this point. People liked Asylum, people like Coven. Freak Show is where it goes off the rails a lot for
Oh, Freak Show is
everyone.
like a genuinely unpleasant TV season of TV. Like I
Yeah,
remember watching it, and it's just like we get through. Like Asylum is also unpleasant just because it's just like that one's got like a lot of gross, like just like Chloe Savingi's character, and that is very oddly handled.
yeah.
And like there's the Nazis, and there's the just like it's just a very
And
uncomfy season of TV. And then that's there, and you're just like. I don't think I like any
and
of
then you've
this.
got
Come
like the
on.
pure like glee camp of Coven in between.
Oh, and see, that's the thing is that Coven rules. Like Coven knows
Coven's
what it
fun,
is. Like that is the season where I'm just like, damn, why didn't they get Lady Gaga for that fucking season and have her be a witch? That would
honestly.
be fucking sick.
Honestly. But
Like that's like that they need to, like they even bring that back later in the show, but still kind
oh
of
yeah, for
underutilize it.
Apocalypse. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
like they try and bring it back and they still don't use it as much as they should. Like they don't know the
Yeah.
gold that they have on their hands. And it's kind of a classic case of popular media not understanding what camp is. Like
Yep.
they flirt with it, they kind of do it, and because it's Ryan Murphy, and Ryan Murphy clearly thinks he knows what camp is.
That evil little
And
homosexual. I can't.
he's he's I think you can tie him to the career of Lady Gaga in some interesting ways. I mean, like, because like Glee was a phenomenon that definitely like when the Lady
Yeah.
Gaga songs popped off in Glee,
Mhm.
they popped off. Like that sustained a lot of
Glee,
her success then.
the cast of Glee has charted more songs on the Hot 100 than almost any other act in history.
Glee had as many charting hits as Drake up until 2021, I believe.
that
That's
that is
insane.
iconic.
It's, I mean, it's those fucking Swedish producers. Those, I mean, that's we have them to thank that they
Yeah.
worked and they worked their little asses off. But
And
to
and
steer
now
us
we can
back,
leave the show on Broadway. God bless.
the our generate the Barbara Streisand our generation deserves. Uh,
Oh, I don't know about that.
um, but to steer us back slightly on
Yeah.
track is that I think the apex of both popularity and just general quality of Gaga's ancillary work is A Star Is Born, both in the songs in the film and the quality of her performance, because like
Yeah.
that was one of those moments where it's like that who won Best Actress that year exactly?
That was Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody, the most awarded film at that year's ceremony with 4 wins.
okay, it being stacked against Bo Rap and then being unfavorably compared, that's ludicrous. Like I know that there are like I just throwing this out there. I fucking love this version of A Star is Born. I think it's an excellent fucking movie. It is also, I was very not aware of the very classic story that that movie tells that a lot of people were aware of, and
Hmm.
it has a very particular like it becomes a very different kind of movie than it starts out as at a certain point. And I
Yeah,
saw this movie at a very vulnerable point in my life. Like I can't stress enough.
yeah.
I saw this film a not even 24 hours after I had some up close personal experience with the subject material. So this movie left me
Ooh,
a sobbing wreck.
that'll do it.
It was like I left this movie blubbering like a fucking baby. And I owe that mostly to Gaga being unbe-fucking believable in this. Like I know people knew she could act. Like that was
Yeah.
generally like, she's
I mean,
multi-talented. She can,
she was already a Golden Globe winner at this point,
yes. And
for Hotel, which is, like,
the crazy thing about this, though, is that she shows up and she plays a very normal character. It's like there's nothing super like
mhm.
showy about this performance at all. It's just a really good dramatic turn that she
Yeah.
pulls off really convincingly. And like, man, that final sequence. Oh my God. Oh, that final shot ruined me.
Another kiss.
And we can't talk about Gaga without talking about The Shallow. That song was fucking everywhere, particularly I do not think that the this part of the decade had a more memeable 2 seconds of music than like because that was everywhere. Everywhere.
That trailer played in front of every single movie for like 5 months straight. Um,
and and I'm sure that did not help its goodwill. I'm sure that kind of set it up to kind of like, be the movie that people were like, "Oh yeah, it's good," but
eh,
it's like trying to go for the Oscar even though it's a pretty
yeah,
like sedate movie. Like I kind of like how down to earth that movie is. It's like I think
yeah.
the direction and it's very good. Like it's just generally speaking like it's one of my favorite movies of that particular year, and
Hmm.
I think it holds up. I think Cooper's great in it, but Gaga to me is definitely the show
Yeah.
stealer there. Like her performance is like it's really something else. She gets to showcase that she doesn't just have to do the campy, dramatic, or kind of like, I'm being kind of silly on purpose. It's like, oh no, this is a little bit of everything, which I kind of think that this, we probably owe a little bit of the weekend thinking that he can get away with this because of
Oh
this movie.
God, that
Unfucking fortunately, because
Hurry Up Tomorrow is one of the worst things I've seen this decade.
I'm gonna get like the lot of us to watch that eventually because watching that
Okay,
stoned sounds
we
like a
need.
fantastic
Okay, we need to
idea.
do that. We need to do Obsessed.
Yes,
And
yes. Oh, that's such a great like 90s coded double feature, like single white female core double
oh my
feature.
God.
Um, but this turn I feel like really put her on people's radar again. Like I remember people
Yeah.
going back and being like, "Yeah, Gaga's music is like this is when I started hearing art pop revisionism is when
Yeah.
this movie came out and people
That's
were
when it
like,
kicked
"Yeah,
in.
no, this was good, man."
Yeah. And my thing with this movie is I like it. I like it. I
But
don't love it.
well, I have a feeling that it has a hard time comparing to the Judy Garland version.
I mean, that's the thing. It was an uphill battle because this is like the fifth version of it.
Hmm.
And the Judy one is just such a monumental work. I like
Hmm.
what this is basically what if the Barbara Streisand movie was good? It the
Hmm.
most similarities with that,
Because Cooper's
um,
clearly doing a Christopherson type
and
character.
and I think even just as a director, I think Cooper is very Streisand-esque.
you've got a point. There is clearly a kind of naturalism that that movie is shooting for that like it's kind of marketed as a very like, oh, it's like a really emotional experience, but like that's like A Star is Born is a very ugly, thorny movie. Like
Yeah.
it's like the first third of it is very like, oh, the glitz and glamour of fame, and then the rest of the movie is just like, oh, this is a chamber drama and I'm uncomfy. Like,
Yeah.
but
I was the asshole going around that year saying that I liked Vox Lux better.
well, okay, I love A Star is Born, but Vox Lux is a fucking masterpiece. That's if I've got to pick between the pop movies that came out that year, I'm
Yeah.
picking the one that Morgan and I drove 4 hours in the middle of nowhere in a theater
Yeah.
the size of a fucking shoebox to see, where we're the only people in there, and then that fucking that final performance sequence happens, and it's just like, oh man.
I saw Vox Lux on the last day that it was playing in Somerville, Massachusetts, because I'm from Boston originally. There was four people in there. It was like these two random people, me, and my grandmother who decided to come along. And the
Imagining an
crazy thing is
elderly
she liked
woman
the
watching a
movie.
Brady Corbett film is hysterical.
And she liked the
Hysterical.
movie. That's the funniest part at the end.
That's
She
fucking
liked it.
wild. Not that I don't like kind of get it, because like Vox Lux is kind of a straight-laced movie. It's just that it
Yeah.
has interjections of like, oh, there's a mass shooting here. And then the movie just kind of is like, oh, and here's the fame pop star part of it. But
And then
like,
that's
yeah,
shooting again.
yeah, exactly. But like I'm definitely with you there. But I still think that like generally speaking, this is a very well remembered movie. Like I feel like people are like, yeah, this is a solid, like
It feels
strong
like
B
one of the
plus
last
kind of movie.
big. It feels like one of the last big movies for adults and adults only that is still fondly remembered in the grand scheme of things. I mean,
I
because it
completely
worked.
agree.
It's a good story, and I think that's why it's told over and over again.
And
Um,
I kind of wish that this got more Oscar attention because it might have saved Bradley Cooper a lot of inner turmoil. We might not have had to sit through Maestro if this movie was more successful.
if Steven Spielberg had decided to rally around this
Hmm.
instead of convincing the elderly brigade to wrap around the Andrew Cuomo of movies, Green Book,
Oh God, what a fucking amazing comparison.
we would have been spared a whole lot of headaches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that. Thank God, Parasite has kind of turned the Oscar tide since. If it feels like
Yeah.
Green
I
Book
mean,
was kind of a
Coda
moment where
sticks
we were
out as like
like,
an odd moment of like, what the fuck? But you know,
Green Book kind of feels like the last moment where you're like, okay, we can like we should never let this happen again. And the closest we've come since is Coda, and that's
yeah.
still a pretty big step up from Green
Yeah.
Book.
But like the Green Book thing was like making Spike Lee sit through this happening twice is offensive.
Oh, and for and for a movie that should have won a lot more of the things that it was nominated for. Like I think you could very well argue that that won all of the wrong awards that it was nominated for, save for one or two.
Yeah. I mean, Black Klansman also would have been like a great movie for them to rally around at the
First,
time.
I mean, like you kind of owe it to the man at this point.
Yeah. Hello.
Uh, a
But you
couple
know, I
times
mean,
over.
but you know, I still like A Star is Born. It's a good movie.
Yeah, very
The
good film.
performance that really gets me is Sam Elliott.
It's that fucking the
It's the
turning
turn
around
at the end.
back in the pickup truck out. That scene's just
It
like,
kills
oh,
me.
it's murderous. Like that's Elliot's also going for a very Christopherson kind of
Mhm.
vibe in that, and like just nails like he's always brings it. Like that motherfucker has a good performance in Ghost Rider. He's so good.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he will
I'm honestly
always be
trying to think
great.
of a bad Sam Elliott performance, and I can't think of one.
Not coming. I mean, dude barely's in The Big Lebowski, and I would argue he's one of the most memorable parts of it.
Yeah,
Um, and so it kind of feels like at this point we are gearing up to a Gaga sance. Like it kind of feels like we're ready for one. And so we kind of get murmurs of just like, oh, she's working on something, and she's working
yeah.
on it for a while. Like I believe Chromatica was in the works for a little while, like
It was
before it was
in
actually.
for a hot minute, and then
There's a
throughout
lot of collaborators on that album. Like there's a
there,
lot of
there
producers, a lot of big names on that are like really kind of bigger, kind of I don't want to say like bigger names, but like names that like again, music blogs are really gonna like the fact that Lady Gaga is
yeah,
collaborating with these people.
you know, it's,
And then a global pandemic destroyed the music
I,
charts for an entire year.
it's one of my favorite pictures to come out of Twitter is a picture of the trending charts on there for like
Mm,
news. And
yeah.
number one is "Stupid Love," the lead single from this album.
Yep.
And that news headline above it is about the beginning of the COVID pandemic and masking
Yeah.
rules. And someone circles "Stupid Love" and then draws an arrow to COVID and puts like a question mark, like God, this is your fault.
It is again the perfect example of well, actually it's an inverse of Joanne in that it's right album worst time imaginable.
Absolutely worst time possible because okay, so the timeline for this, she wins the Oscar for Shallow, drops a makeup line through Amazon in 2019 that we'll come back to in a hot minute, but at the time it's not well received. Uh, and then 2020 starts gearing up for a return to pop music. Oh yeah, and we also have to mention, of course, performing at the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yes.
Nailed it. Brought
Oh
everybody
yeah.
in a big way. But 2020, "Stupid Love," going back to fun dance pop, the sounds from earlier of a career, puts out "Stupid Love," does well. And then the pandemic hits and the world goes mad. And it kind of throws everything off balance. She had planned a big tour and was planning all these different things to go along with the album, and then it doesn't happen. And then when she's gearing up to release the album and its second single, "Rain on Me," George Floyd is murdered by the police, and all hell breaks loose in this country.
Yep. This was an album that came out right before we started the Jams and Tea podcast, so we didn't get to cover it, but was one of those albums that was like
Mhm.
it was subsumed by the fact that like yes, all of this was going on, and also it was an unfortunate moment to be literally anyone not named Abel Tesfaye. Because if you were making pop music that was supposed to chart then, it simply didn't because Blinding Lights, motherfucker. Have you heard Blinding Lights? You're gonna hear
Well,
Blinding
one woman
Lights a
did
little bit.
break through. Her name is Dua Lipa.
That's the broke through and then immediately broke back. And it was like that just kind of
Yes, I love
covered the
round trip tickets.
fucking expressway. And it's a damn shame because this is an album that definitely goes for the kind of fun maximalism of early Gaga, but it's also like it's a lot less serious of an album than Art
Mhm.
Pop was. It's a lot
Yeah,
less dark in that respect, even though
yeah.
like I will say that like the obviously the being overshadowed by the news is just kind of going to be an inevitability, but like Stupid Love is a very enjoyable, very silly, very fun little song. Rain on Me is spectacular.
Yeah.
Rain on Me is incredible. And
Rain
also,
on
like,
Me hit the community harder than crack in the 80s. Like,
it was, and a poignant song also. I feel like that probably
it
missed a
is.
couple of people of just being like, oh no, this is definitely a song about struggling with alcoholism. Like, definitely.
Yeah. It just immediately got adopted by the community as like an instant gay classic.
And it is by far to me the best moment on this album, and
Yeah.
also the last time I have liked Ariana Grande in any context since. I have not dug
She's
anything she's put out since her guest feature on this song, where she
she's done some
sings
good
and
stuff
she's
to be
great.
sweet.
What
She
now?
she's done some good stuff since.
A couple things, I'm sure,
One
but
one very big bubbly uh pink thing in particular, but
It's definitely sad when the least memorable Ariana Grande album definitely outperformed you numbers wise that specific year.
Yeah,
Uh
that was kind of rough.
Uh, and the thing is with Chromatica is this is an album where I completely understand everything it's doing and I overridingly enjoy it, but it's also an album that like I listen to and I'm like I just don't get as much out of this as I do with her other albums, especially the
Yeah.
ones that like it's clearly trying to harken back mostly to Born This Way. And I feel like that album's hit rate is just a little bit stronger. There's
Yeah.
songs on here that like I don't super care. Like I think that songs like the Blackpink collaboration is like that's okay to
Oh,
me.
Sour Candy.
Yeah.
I
That
do think that song.
it's good, but then there's like Enigma, which I'm not personally super into, and
Uh-huh.
God, what else is that? Actually, no, I take it back. I really love 911. 911 is really great.
911's a fucking banger. Music video directed by Tarsum Singh.
We for for our audience, we just did a Tarsum Singh double feature yesterday. So that's actually that's a really good fit for Gaga. Like the
Yeah.
really kind of austere, gaudy presentation of somebody
Mhm.
like him.
Yeah.
That feels
Color
right.
of Pomegranates inspired, which,
Mm.
uh, so many pop divas have taken inspiration from the color of pomegranates. Like, if you just
Oh
look,
yeah. It's just an album that ends up to me, I feel like it suffers the most structurally of like this is another case of like the debut where like most of my favorite stronger songs are on the front half and not the back
yeah.
half.
Mhm.
And you could also argue that this is the only time in Gaga's career where you see her trying to catch up with where pop is at rather than
Mhm.
laying the groundwork for where it would go.
Yeah. And, it was an odd time. I mean, it was her first pop album in 7 years,
So,
honestly.
like, it's understandable that she didn't want to push herself that far outside of her comfort zone. Like, I think that every decision made on Chromatica was probably the right one. It's just that fucking timing that really bit it in the ass, which is a shame because it really does have its moments. And I hope that those moments are appreciated for the highlights that they are now that we can at least evaluate it now that time has passed a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, like, Rain on Me is still like a repeat classic. I mean,
Yes, I would add, that's like a top 10 Gaga song for
yeah,
sure for
I
me.
mean, just go anywhere in West Hollywood, you will hear that song no matter what time of day it is.
And I would say that a little bit of the salve that was put on the fact that this was not the biggest smash and that it landed with a bit of a commercial kind of thud was amended a bit when we got the next year we got Dawn of Chromatica, which is a
Yeah.
kind of increasing trend of something that I'm seeing happen of the idea of the remix album
Hmm.
where it's a pop album that comes out and then eventually we get another version of it with a different title and it'll be a pop star usually working with a lot of really interesting collaborators and producers that they normally wouldn't work with or that they previously worked with and just like emphasizing the personality times a billion. I mean, again, this is a precedent that Gaga sets that I feel like once again is followed up with when Charlie did the Brat but different remix album. I feel like that really finds its inception as an idea in something like this. And I mean, you could even say that like this was bubbling in the underground because I know that the 100 gecs follow-up album basically followed this exact formula as something
Yeah.
that was like, let's instead of going into music blog kind of online circles, let's collaborate with mainstream pop artists instead. And
Hmm.
then you get the kind of hyper pop fusion that I feel like this is really focused on that in my opinion makes for a way more fractious and way more like just like way less consistent, way less like just like all way more all over the place album. And
Yeah.
as a result, I kind of like it a little bit more if I'm honest with you.
Oh, honestly, I prefer Donna Chromatica to Chromatica itself. I think
Yeah,
it's way
I
more
think a
interesting. It's
lot of
way
these
more
songs are just
varied.
really improved.
It's just more chaotic, and I think that fits.
The Rain on Me remix that's done by Arca, who this channel has talked about in very, very, very extensive detail with the albums that they dropped in that similar year. And that
Hmm.
shit's crazy. Like, this is an album that takes fucking risks and shows you that
Yeah.
Gaga, as a tastemaker, has always been on the cutting edge. Like, we're working with A.G. Cook on here. We're working with Rina Sawayama on here. We're working with Ash Nico. We're working with Shy Girl. Like, this is Dorian
Dorian
Electra. It's
Electra,
like,
Bree Runway.
it is very, I would say that if you were measuring her albums purely by how much gay shit is in them, this is her gayest album.
I
It's
mean, Pablo
crazy.
Vittar's on there, and
Yes.
that. Yeah,
It's like I even think that like the remix of Sour Candy I like a lot more on here. I think
it's a
that
good
the
remix.
it's just a lot of really fascinating choices that
Yeah,
I like. I'm not sure how they work all the time as Lady Gaga songs, but just as weird ass
yeah.
hyperpop experiments. Fucking hell yeah. Like I can't believe something like this was released. And again, it's just like it does set the sort of like, oh, the Brat Remix album coming out and being like a really extensive, interesting overhaul that a not insignificant amount of people will probably tell you is a little better than the source. So like this is a
I
cool trend. I
also,
really like
uh,
this.
if I'm being honest, I also kind of prefer the Brat remix album to the OG.
I do too. We never
Hey.
talked about it, so I never mentioned it, but I also I really do. Um, but this was a cool moment because it kind of feels like Chromatica lands with a thud, but Dawn of Chromatica, I feel like it really won all the Gaga like diehards
Mhm.
back of just being like, oh no, like
For sure.
she's definitely still got it. And then we
Hmm.
do have another album with Tony Bennett released in this same year, Love for Sale, which is
Uh,
solid, just like Cheek to Cheek was. It's okay.
yeah, yeah,
Some
it's
fun,
cute.
cute stuff.
It was his last album, so it
Hmm.
has a little bit of note of bittersweetness on it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's good classic, if you're if you get together with your family and you need some good pleasant music to turn on in the background that won't
yeah,
upset your parents, that's a perfectly good album to put on.
yeah. And it's funny that I mentioned Vox Lux earlier because the original Chromatica does make me think of Vox Lux a lot. It just
Oh
sounds like
yeah,
the kind of album that Celeste was making and selling in that movie.
for
Even
sure.
down to having a K-pop group on your album as a feature
Yeah.
was like right at the start of that trend where K-pop was really taking off in this country. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's subsided off by now at this point, but it was like the beginning of that tidal wave.
And like it's died down slightly, but again, as my fiance has gotten into K-pop, it has shown me that like that shit's gonna have legs for a long
Oh
fucking
yeah,
time over
for
here.
sure.
Like those tours over, they are
Hmm.
insane. They like that kind of shit. Like so anybody who's kind of looking forward in that way, who like there are some people who kind of like I remember there was a Selena Gomez and I think Blackpink collaboration that happened where I was like,
Oh, ice
that's
cream,
annoying and I never want to think about that again. And then there's stuff like this where I'm like, actually this is pretty solid.
right? And then
And now we have after that we have her song for the Top Gun Maverick soundtrack, which as
well,
a
right
move
before
is
that, we do have something we do need to
oh
discuss.
shit, what did I miss?
Father, Son, House of Gucci.
Oh God, you're
We do need to
right.
talk about her
You're
second
right.
role. So it looks like Gaga is going to be in one movie every 3 years, which honestly, I dig that
I cede my floor to the Italian.
So if anyone hasn't seen it, House of Gucci is directed by Ridley Scott. So already
God,
we're
it was. I fucking totally forgot that Ridley Scott made it.
one
Holy
of Ridley
shit.
Scott's two movies that year. The Last Duel, which made like 5 cents at the box office because
Yep.
no one need
Nobody.
shaman in modern, not in medieval England. Although good performances in that. Jodie Comer is really good. I mean, she's good in everything. Uh, but House of Gucci is about Patrizia Reggiani, who married into the Gucci family. Her husband had become the head of the business and the empire. Eventually fell out of love with her, divorced her, and she would not take this. She would not take this sitting down. and arranged for his assassination.
Oh,
Uh, in the movie, he is played by Adam Driver. His father is played by Jeremy Irons. The uncle
oh God.
by his uncle is played by Al Pacino,
Alfredo Pacino.
and then his cousin is played by Jared Leto, who is playing him as Chef
In
Boyardee
in
meets.
my head, that is the only thing about this movie I know of because that got so much play on Twitter. Like every line Jared Leto said in that movie was posted onto that website. And wow, what a performance.
There's a scene between him and Gaga where they're just in a competition for who can chew the most scenery without, like accidentally biting off the limb of a crew member.
So does my question oh shit. Jared Leto's coming for me. My question here is does Gaga play the overacting to her benefit or not in the film?
I would say so. It is a less solid performance than A Star is Born because the movie, here's the weird thing. The movie itself is very icy and rigid and set into this form of biopic that Ridley Scott likes to do, very.
That sounds like a bad idea.
But the thing is that everyone is in an accent off, just doing the goofiest shit you could imagine. I mean, Gaga sounds like if Melania Trump went for 5 years and then Sweden and then moved back to Sicily.
Ooh,
Even
that's rough.
accent is a little bit insane. It's a long movie. It's 2.5 hours, and it really does not need to be. And the final third of the movie is more Adam Driver's than Lady Gaga. And like, cut back to Lady Gaga and Salma Hayek in the bathtub, please. Like, please give me more of that.
That happy pride. Woof.
She plays
So
a psychic that Gaga started having that Patricia had an affair with, and was plotting the murder with. Uh,
naturally.
but and then you had like the press cycle where Gaga was talking about being
Did she
so
channel the dead ghosts? Did she do one of those?
being so deep into this character that she needed a psychiatric nurse on set, and that she was
Oh
being
boy.
followed by dead flies buzzing around her everywhere. Because she didn't get Patricia's
Stories
permission.
that I'm sure are 100% true and not at all made up and meant to
So
circulate in the
this
media.
is what I love about a Gaga press tour is because she goes absolutely fucking loopy, especially on something like this where she is playing a clown. Like everyone in this movie is a clown, and we'll talk more about
I
clowns.
was about to say that's a really interesting choice of words you just used there.
But
But
no,
like
it's a fun performance. It is camp. I don't know how intentional it is, but it is absolutely camp.
it sounds like a movie that is like a movie that doesn't really work with the idea of camp as like again that kind of austere, very like just kind of sedentarily styled sort of biopic, just sort of like how you picture it. And then you just have these cartoon characters running around inside of
Yeah,
it. And it's like, that's
and
preferable to everyone being really sedate and boring. But it's
right.
also like, it's not a recipe for a super successful movie at the
It
end of the day.
it really clashes against itself pretty hard.
But I mean, it's the first in the Adam Driver Italian royalty duology, I guess.
Uh, well, trilogy, really.
What's the other one?
Well, Michael Mann's not Italian as far as I know, but he did play.
Yeah,
But
well, what's the other one I'm thinking? Because I was thinking of Ferrari.
I thought you were referring to Megalopolis.
Oh, yeah. See, that's the thing is that Coppola should have made House of Gucci.
Oh
That was a
my
complete
God,
mismatch
that
here.
would have
Would that
altered,
make a better
altered
movie? I
art.
don't know. Would it make a more entertaining
Could
movie?
you imagine Francis Ford
Absolutely.
Coppola and Lady Gaga in the same room?
uh, someone would leave with a bruise. I'm not sure who. I'm not even sure if it would be them, but someone would. That is a lot. That is a lot of Italian in one place, and a lot
Hmm.
of ego.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I take it back. I don't think Gaga probably like after Megalopolis. I don't think anybody touches Francis in that regard. You like Lady Gaga's Megalopolis would be a far more coherent film.
Oh God. Oh my God. I
And
can't even.
I'd be sad. I would totally watch Lady Gaga's
I mean,
Megalopolis. I
they.
still haven't even seen the actual one.
Oh God, I can't wait for your thoughts on that if you ever do decide
I
to.
It's a movie that's too interesting to turn down the idea of not watching it. So I'll get there one day, but in terms of far more financially successful films,
Yeah.
I it's
House of
smart
Food.
move
Yeah.
on this part of doing a song for Top Gun Maverick, which is the post-COVID blockbusters are back now movie. Like
Right.
we can make hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office, and we're gonna have some pop stars on the soundtrack, and very traditional stuff.
And we can do it with a movie star, and sure,
Yes.
it's a legacy sequel, but we're not relying on Spider-Man to get there because No Way Home is the movie that becomes, like the highest grossing film after
Hmm.
the pandemic until, Avatar knocks it to the side. But
The
Tom,
eternal god James Cameron decided it was so.
as is his job. But House of Gucci had done well
Thank you, Awa.
for what it was in 2021. It made like 160 million or something, which
Yeah,
is
that's not bad.
for that time and what it is. But
No, I'm sure all the old people who saw that had a great time.
Top Gun Maverick just real resets the board for everybody and
Yeah,
got right there in the middle of it.
including One Republic, who had by far the most successful song on the soundtrack, dwarfing Lady Gaga in a yet again misaligned moment of fate, where it's like she should have been at the top here. Like, it's a fine song. Like, both of them I think are fine, but
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, she also worked with Zimmer on the score.
yes, she did.
Not that she
She
got a
did.
credit on it.
Which, I mean, like maybe there's an ah in there somewhere we just haven't heard.
Yeah,
So,
who knows?
um, then I think we get this, and this is odd because Lady Gaga has many strange ancillary stuff, but maybe the strangest is in 2024 where she drops Harlequin, which is not like the soundtrack of Joker Folly Adieu. It's just kind of songs that are inspired by.
So here's the thing about Harlequin. So 2024, Gaga pretty much spent 2023 just like relaxing. Well, she had the revival of the makeup line, House Labs, which had launched on Amazon in 2019, but got ripped apart by people for just not being good quality product. So
Hmm.
she completely revamped her makeup line, which is a very difficult thing to do. But she actually managed to pull it off, and now it's like
Okay.
selling celebrity lines at Sephora, like right next to Rare Beauty and Fenty Beauty.
Oh, okay. That's big.
Yeah, so like it's done really well. So, 2023 was mainly about that retooling.
Gaga
Um,
stonks are finally going up again.
oh God, we completely forgot to mention the inauguration.
Oh fuck yeah! I get yeah. If we get the second instance of Joseph R. Biden in this story.
God, and then the vacuum bag dress with the giant bird, like she's Effie Trinket, like
Oh yeah, super Hunger Games core shit. Yeah,
it
absolutely.
kind of fit the vibe of January 2021,
Mm-hmm. Most certainly.
But early 2024, people are starting to beg, where's an album? Where's an album? We want all Gaga, blah,
And
blah,
she
blah.
was like, "Fine,
The
here's an
crucial,
album."
the key in this that we have not brought up yet is Michael Polanski, uh, a venture capitalist that she started dating back in 2020. And
Oh yeah.
perhaps one of the only good, maybe the only halfway decent venture capitalists on this earth. because he's taking his money and funding the arts. Like for their anniversary, he had an entire studio installed into their home so that way she could make music whenever she wanted. And he's
Oh,
encouraging, like, I think he even has a couple of writing credits on the new album.
he does. He does. I think he has one for Abracadabra, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, he's been very supportive in getting her back to what makes her happy, what makes fans happy.
Venture capitalists not funneling all their money into AI is a much better one than the ones we got for the most part.
It
So
is a miracle. But the main thing in 2024 is, we're gearing up to that point. Uh, and then I believe it was in 2023 when the news broke that Gaga's next film role would be Harley Quinn.
Joker 2, baby.
Bali Ado.
Which I have not seen because basically it is so funny because like I remember when the first Joker came out and like everybody pissed themselves because they were like, "Oh my God, this movie's so good." And I saw it and I fucking hated it. Like I did like not only did I hate it, I also saw it at like one of the lowest points of my life. So I just went in huffing and hawing and I left and I was like, "What a fucking piece of shit."
You
And I
remember like
just
area that people were gonna get shot at in the theater? Like
God, it was. See, and I was like, and I was on the movie side when that shit was happening, where I was just like, you all are doing this for no reason. This is like, you all sound like the people who you sound like fucking what's her name that who is the politician who saw her kid dancing to Darling Nikki by Prince and then established
uh,
a rating system. If it
or
was
Vice
about
Lady, First Lady Tippy Gore.
Yes, yes, Tipper Gore. Thank you. It's just the Tipper Gore shit all over again, where everybody's just like, "Oh my God, this isn't. You can't have
The
this in
only
front of
violence that year was
children."
someone getting stabbed at Frozen 2. Like, please.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And it's like it's a lot of silly shit, and I'm just like, no, just let the movie be the movie. And then I saw it, and I was like, I fucking got on a pedestal for this fucking bullshit,
It's like
and
this
like
no boring. It's inferior Taxi Driver. And
it's inferior. It's just inferior Scorsese pastiche, and I know that's kind of like a tired criticism of it, but it's like for those of people like I can't explain to them what it's like to have seen The King of Comedy and then to walk into Joker and then it's just like I
nope.
am just watching an inferior film not made by the greatest living American filmmaker. And you
Yep.
can't top that. You
Yeah.
can't. Like even though that's like my 15th favorite Scorsese movie and it's still amazing.
That
Amazing film.
one that one's top five for me, which made Joker even worse.
Oh, I bet. And also, like, I feel like we're both of the opinion that I do not like Phoenix in that film. I don't.
He's it's not a good performance.
It's
There's
a
nothing interesting going on with that character.
it's such a expected performance. There's nothing about it that feels like risky or interesting. It's just like he plays it so close to what's written on the page that it has no life. I
It's it's very obvious. It's a narratively dead movie until like the final half hour, which is like real.
so naturally, I'm not interested in seeing Joker 2, but there's peppers of news throughout the lead up to this film where it's just like, it's going to be a musical. And I'm like, okay, I'm not expecting to like this, but that's interesting. And
Yeah.
then you hear people going to see it and they're just like, this is a movie that takes risks, and it's a movie that clearly hates the people that loved the first movie too much. And I'm like, okay, I'm listening. This sounds interesting to me.
Yeah.
I can get behind this. And then I have people basically like you and Zach going to see that movie who are just like, there's just nothing here, man.
Right. So Joker comes out in 2019 at the height of the superhero mania, grosses $1 billion, one
Billion.
wins two Academy Awards but
Score and actor.
for an actor, and was nominated for 11. It was actually the nomination leader of that year.
And it won the Golden Lion, didn't it?
Yeah, thanks, Lucretia Martel. Thank you.
Ah,
But something shifts in the 5 years between Joker and Folia 2.
Todd Phillips shifts in 5 years and is like, I fucking goddamn I hate the people who like my movie.
Not just that, but like the entire superhero genre crumbles.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, like this is like in the middle of like the Marvels is about to come out and nobody is going to care at
Yeah,
all. This
that
is
movie bombed hard. Quantumania bombed hard. And even now we're seeing the effects where like Brave New World barely passes 400 million.
And
Um,
that's like a mainline Captain America movie that
yeah,
like that used to be a movie that would be the box office leader until an Avengers movie came out,
everyone
essentially.
everyone pretended that Thunderbolts was good and was insisting on it. And then the trades finally admitted, no, this movie's actually probably going to lose $100 million.
Oh,
And now they're relying on Doomsday and Fantastic Four to save themselves. And I'm like, well, Fantastic Four movies have always gone right the last 5 times you tried, so of course it's gonna go over well, right?
they put all of their eggs in the resurrect Robert Downey Jr. and star power of Pedro Pascal, and that's it. That's all they've got right now. That's
And
it.
DC completely fucking implodes. I mean, you have Wonder Woman 1984, which is one of the most memorable fiascos of the last 5 years.
Oh God, what a piece of shit.
Uh,
Because
you know,
Pedro Pascal really helped that one.
Oh, totally. Remember when that movie basically said it was okay for bad things to happen?
Yeah, I hate that fucking movie so much. That's like that to me was like this is like the worst screenplay that a DC movie's had since like Catwoman. Like
I'm
that
like,
was just
Wonder Woman would not be that Wonder Woman would not save your children. Come on now, let's be real.
no, that Wonder Woman is absolutely like, but Israel has a right to defend itself. Like, yeah, I'm sure.
But
Whatever.
so DC collapses to the point where Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is the final entry in that universe. That movie doesn't even get a red carpet opening night. It gets a fan event at the Grove, which
And
is
the
like
first Aquaman was a smash fucking hit.
the first
And it's
Aquaman was the
Aquaman.
biggest grossing film in the DCEU.
And also, notably, the only DCEU movie to remember that colors exist.
Yeah. So then you get like this bad sequel. I mean, it's really boring. I mean, the first one's boring too. But that one comes out and grosses like less than half of what the first one made. So DC is on the back burner. Matt Reeves is somewhere, taking God knows however long to finish the script for Batman Part Two, which is
He and
probably
Robert Pattinson are breakdancing in the corner, having a good little time because they know they'll be just fine.
yeah. I did see that the script was finished yesterday, I think. So
Oh, hey, we might get it before the end of the decade. Congrats.
it is just
Whoop-de-doo.
funny. That kind of time gap is just funny.
Well, and even now, it's like we're seeing like a new Superman movie is about to come out, and that is going to be the barometer of like, is DC back right now? Because we
Right.
really don't know. Because I really think Folie à Deux put them on an ice pack of just like, now we don't even have that we don't have the critics, we don't have the audience, we've just burned all our goodwill. We've just set fire to millions of dollars.
So the thing with the Folie à Deux, since you haven't seen it, it's set, I believe, a couple of years after the events of the first film. Um, Arthur
And it is
Fleck,
the trial of Arthur Fleck.
yes, he's about to go on trial for murdering Robert De Niro and a couple of other people, inciting the riot, yada yada yada. So he's in Arkham Asylum, where his handler is Brendan Gleeson.
God, imagine coming off of Banshees of Inisherin and then being in
Going to
Joker
stand for
2.
Todd Phillips.
Oh, God.
And he has a chance encounter with a woman in the psych ward named Harley, who very rapidly develops a crush on him, played, of course, by Lady Gaga. And the movie splits its time between the court scenes, where he's on trial. Well, they're trying to figure out basically if he's like mentally well enough to stand
Bro
trial.
thinks he's Godfather 2.
Like, can you deal with the ramifications of what you've done? and this romance he's having with Gaga, where sometimes they just feel the need to sing, except the songs are very clearly fantasy sequences. It kind of takes the Chicago method. Uh,
What?
the thing is that Joaquin cannot sing. They clip Gaga severely by having her like whisper sing the entire time.
Oh, not Les Mis talk singing.
It's very lame Miss talk singing.
Ah, that sucks, man.
So like she doesn't really get to do like the full number of, if they could see me now or uh close to you.
That
So
feels like the moments you want to go for.
yeah.
Like,
So the movie is basically spinning its wheels for 2 hours and 20 minutes until it
God.
gets to the end where he escapes the trial because they blow it up, and then you see a lawyer in the background who's got half his face hurt. Hey, who's that guy? He realizes that he's a complete loser. This is after the movie implies that he was raped by Brendan Gleeson for being too popular.
Oh, okay. That's great. I love that. I love that a lot. That's cool.
Do you care if I just spoil the whole thing? Because I feel like
Oh,
you're not.
I'm fairly certain, like, if I'm not mistaken, Jokin is killed and then his title is usurped by a rando, I believe.
Yeah, so he figures out that Harley never really loved him. She was just a girl conducting a 24-month psychological experiment by Harvard University, yada, yada, yada. Uh,
Okay, and here's the thing. In the abstract, casting Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn is inspired. Like,
yeah,
that's a fantastic choice. It just sounds like it's in a movie that does not care that she's even in it.
that's the thing. This movie really does not care about her. It doesn't care about Joaquin even. It barely does anything.
Lame.
The movie is just a screed at people who didn't understand Joker the first time. It's like
Which, like, I admire the audacity. Like, I like it. Like, I think the both of us admire when directors kind of get a little antagonistic with their audiences and kind
yeah,
of make some decisions that ruffle feathers. But like, that's not an idea you build an entire movie around. Like, you can say that there are lots of movies that do this in the way that like something like The Last Jedi might do it. Fucking But that
yeah.
is also a movie that remembers to have an enjoyable Star Wars movie built around all of it
Mhm.
and doesn't just exist to make people angry, which is just a
What this
bad,
movie does.
bad idea.
It's not the worst film of 2024 by a long shot, honestly. There was some
Oh,
real
I'm sure. I know a lot of people blew out of proportion just how bad it was because they were really into the first one and this one was
yeah,
like and in that respect it's kind of an artistic success because Todd Phillips did in fact piss everyone off.
yeah. It made like a fifth of what the first film.
Ooh,
It was, if
man.
I remember right, the very first superhero movie to get a D or a D minus on Cinema Score
That's impressive.
because you did piss everyone off because you made a musical, but not really. You made a sequel, but not really. You can bring in
so
Gaga, but also not really have her do anything in it, which is just a waste.
so I was gonna say, like,
I'll say I
overall, is
always,
Gaga even given enough to work with that you can say she's good?
honestly, no, I
That's
don't.
kind of what I figured.
She's just wasted. I will always cherish the theater experience I had with this. Seeing it in IMAX 70 millimeter to be precise,
Ooh.
on a Friday,
Oh.
8:30 in the morning.
Ooh. Okay. That
Well,
that
right,
sounds
we grabbed our
perfect for the movie
Starbucks.
you saw.
We
Perfect.
snuck in the Starbucks and we're just like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, if I had to see that movie, that's probably the circumstance I would pick to see it in too. That's what a damn shame. Like
Yeah,
there's a lot of potential there that you could I feel like you could argue is like really wasted because you could make that movie, you could make the point that that movie makes, but do it with like interesting expressive filmmaking and also just make it about fucking Harley. Like just that's the way you piss people off.
yeah.
Don't make it about Arthur. Why would you? Who cares?
The worst thing I could say about this movie is that it is worse than the other big musical crime movie of 2024.
Oh
Maybe
no,
movies that I can
Emilia Perez
unequivocally say
mentioned.
Amelia Perez is better than.
Whoo, that's rough. That's rough, buddy.
But getting back onto Harlequin, the album. So
Yeah.
she had been teasing a LG 7.5, well, 6.5 actually, because Chromatica was LG 6, her sixth album.
Yeah, yeah.
What this is that it's two songs that she had written and contributed to the movie. And then the rest of them are all standards that appear in the movie and are
Yeah.
sung by her or sung by Joaquin. But this time it's a studio version. So instead of, like whispers,
Whisper.
she gets to like go full hog wild on this album. It's like basically releasing the track list from the movie saying, hey, I still know how to fucking sing.
It's like and yeah. It's like I would say that I put this in the exact same place as I put the Tony Bennett collaboration albums of just being like these are very well performed standards.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
like it, honestly, I do.
Yeah, I do too. I actually think that of those albums, it would probably be the one that I reached for. I love the cover of this album. It's kind of like it reminds me of that. It's like a Sky Ferreira album cover, but like she's got the vest on and like her makeup's all running. It's just kind of like, hey, I'm a mess. What's up? If
Uh,
anything, the only thing that I truly lament about this is that it does rob the world of potentially having a good version of Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn in any context because like that's something I would still like to see. Like that would have been a cool choice for the Reeves verse, but guess that's not happening now. So
uh,
oh well.
it's fun. It's fine. I mean, there's other,
It's probably good that she's not in cape shit anyway. So whatever.
yeah, yeah. If she's gonna continue to act, I'd rather see her in more original projects.
Films.
Yeah, not
So
stop.
after that, we get the rumblings of LG7.
Yep.
And this year, we actually get at the start, we got in March 7th, we got the most recent album in this discography. We got Mayhem,
Mhm.
which is kind of, I don't want to say like it is kind of a reassertion again, I think, because sonically speaking, again, this is very comfy for her, but it's less about like Chromatica, as it's titled, is a very colorful album. It's got a lot, like its production is very busy, it's very intense. I think the production on Mayhem is a bit sleeker. It's a little bit more like it's a bit more
Yeah.
of a elegant meeting point of the two kind of disparate phases of Lady Gaga's sound. And I'm not gonna lie, man, I love this album. Like I would even say this is top 3 for her for me because frankly, it is just an album that is solidly built. Like it does have that problem where the second half is just not quite as consistent as that first half, but man, that
Yeah.
first I think Disease is my favorite Lady Gaga pop banger. I love this song. This song is Lady Gaga as produced by Sophie, which is why I love this album in a nutshell, is because she's taking hints from Charlie, she's taking hints from Sophie, she's taking hints from the more avant-garde elements of the pop scene, and it's not as in the forefront as something like Brat, but it is, again, it's a little bit smoother, and as a
Yeah.
result, it just whips like Disease, Abracadabra, Perfect Celebrity, Vanish Into You. Why is this song not everywhere? I am
It's so
floored
great.
at this album's lack of success. Like, I will say, releasing it in March, bad move. This album's
Yeah,
entire bit is that it's kind of positioning like, oh, she's had the little monsters, so why not pivot into being the monster, being the slasher villain in a horror movie? This is a very
yeah,
horror themed album. You should have released this in October when everybody needs this. I feel like
yeah.
that would have kind of, but still, it's well themed. I think the writing on it's good. I mean, obviously, you have Disease, Abracadabra, Killa, Zombie Boy, fucking The Beast, and Die with a Smile, which is a song that got really popular, honestly. Like, I didn't hear it for a while, but the duet with Bruno Mars was like the most successful song he's had in a hot minute.
Well, he needs the success because the game.
He needs the success like he needs the cocaine. Oh boy.
Kind of a Smile, I guess, technically came out first because that came out in
Mhm.
24, but it wasn't, like implied to be the lead single for a Lady Gaga album or anything.
No, we had no clue what it was like. We were like, oh, it's with a smile. Is this like a Joker thing? We kind of thought it was assumed to be tied into that, but then it wasn't on Harlequinn, so we're like, oh, what
Yeah.
gives? I don't but no, it's on here and it's a solid closer. Like I think it's a solid
Yeah.
Gaga pop song, but like again, the run of Disease, Abracadabra, Garden of Eden, Perfect Celebrity, Vanish Into You, Killa, Zombie Boy, these songs are all great. They're all
Yeah.
great. They all hit with it's the first time her production has sounded as full as it has on Art Pop, which is definitely why I get along with it so much, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a really solid return to form in a sense. Um,
It's her confessions on the dance floor if we're
what?
following the career arc, like even
Um,
the guest production from somebody like Gesaffelstein, who very in the house music Daft Punk kind of area, and again that succeeds in spades off of that strength.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Disease is a great way to open up the album in the era. I mean, that music video is fantastic.
She really lays it heavy on the fucking like she really like kind of scrapes up against the top of her vocal register and really like lays into it, and I like that's my favorite vocal mode she has, when she really, like, for lack of a better word, puts the stank on it. It's great.
And I love the video, which is like basically her as Freddy Krueger, more,
Mm-hmm.
which
Never
is,
felt more at home, honestly. It's like I don't know why she did not make this pivot even sooner. It makes a lot of sense.
and then Abracadabra, which debuted at the Grammys as a music video, as like an
Yeah.
ad, replacing like 4 minutes of commercials, is such a fucking headbanger. And it gets back into the phonetics. It's abra,
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, uh.
Abracadabra. She always finds a really interesting way to pronounce the hooks on this album. It just kind of feels like everything that she's ever done well, she does it about as well as she's ever done it on here. It's combined with the fact that the production here has such phenomenal low end. The bass on this album is big, fat, crunchy, satisfying. This is just the kind of platonic idea of like it kind of feels like it's sort of what I think a lot of people might be maybe wanted from the second Dua Lipa album, or the third rather Dua Lipa album, that kind of flopped because it was just kind of a non-starter. This is where it feels like it actually does feel like it has a lot of kinship with that first one, where
Yeah,
she's finally kind of catching up to where pop is at the moment without feeling like she's sort of running in last place behind all of the other girlies.
right. She finds her
So
balance album very well.
yeah, it finally feels like it, at least, or I guess at least it would if this was a little bit more successful, because it unfortunately does have the thing of just like it came out and people were like, yeah, this is solid, and then people just kind of like moved on like immediately
Yeah,
afterwards, just because releasing an album in March, again, unless your name is Abel Tesfaye and it is the year 2020, bad move. Just
yeah,
just not a smart decision to make. And now we're just kind of here in the fallout of that. I'm hoping that maybe again, once Halloween rolls around, we might have a bit of resurgence of this album playing a little bit more because people can pick up on the horror vibe of it and kind of
I
put it
wouldn't
back in clubs a bit, maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised at all by that. And she's going back on tour and that's been doing well. So, like the demand
Good.
is there, even if like there's just a weird thing with the charts right now is that no one's really releasing any music. So,
Hmm.
like nothing is shifting around. Like why is
We're
Birds of a Feather still charting? Why is
mhm.
Lose Control or whatever still
I
charting?
was gonna
Like
say we are very much living in the sequel to the year that we just lived, where it's like, yeah, the people on the charts right now are Kendrick Lamar, Billie Eilish, fucking like Sabrina Carpenter. It's like it's just more of the same. And again, like I like the songs that are on the charts right now, but the lack of new material is a bit it's a bit worrisome.
it's
Uh
uninspiring.
yeah, it's pop is in a very strange place right now. I kind of feel like we're trying to find whatever the next phase of it is going to be, and
Mhm.
we're not like there's no specific direction we're being pulled in. So we're kind of waiting for a huge commercial presence to really set a standard for something because it feels like every like major release from the major pop stars have been like refining something they've been doing already that's like really like that last Billie Eilish album I think is her best album, but it's not doing anything that I would say is paving the way in the way that somebody like Gaga normally does.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And to me, this is a very good record that represents like the essence of who she is, especially in 2025.
Hmm.
I do like some of the songs on the second half. Like How Bad Do You Want Me, I think is really catchy.
Oh
The
yeah, Shadow of a Man,
Oh
and
man, it's a
like I think
fucking
is
bop.
really solid, like really solid. Even Love Drug I think is like ridiculous, but like really fun.
Yeah. And, Blade of Grass is like a cute way to close the album out before
Yeah,
that smile, which is inspired actually by the way that Polanski proposed to her. They were in the backyard and he just took blade of
interesting.
grass and then, made a ring out of it and put it on her finger.
Well, you know what? That's charming. That explains the sentiment of the song a little bit. I like that a lot. It's very like Gaga's somebody who's super austere and super like about presentation and about everything, but she never gives the impression that she's like above it all. Like there's so many pop stars where it's like they project such overwhelming like divinity that they feel untouchable. Whereas Gaga has always kind of felt like she's like, yeah, you gotta be a little weird to meet me on my level. But if you are, you won't have a hard time at all.
Yeah. She's never above the chaos.
Yes, and that is the most consistently cool thing about her. I feel like she is a weirdo of the people for the people.
Always, always, always.
So, Cole, if you're ranking the core studio albums of Lady Gaga, what
Hmm.
is your ranking?
Okay. Stuff. Gonna put Joanne at the bottom.
Yep. Okay.
It, it, it's just a little lacking. It's a little forced.
Yeah, I completely understand.
Those aren't at the level of like her other big hits.
Hmm.
After that, I guess I would put Chromatica, honestly. It's got really great stuff on it, just not reaching the same heights as like some previous works.
In hindsight, I feel like it will be viewed as a very transitional moment for her.
Yeah, for sure. And then I would put the debut album because the first five tracks, or well, the first six tracks are just fucking phenomenal.
Would
Classic
be a
pop.
great EP. Yeah.
Yeah. Then after that, so now we're on the top four. Then I would put Mayhem. which is really fun, really entertaining. Glad to see her back at what she's doing. Excited to see what happens next. Then I would put art pop, which is just, entertaining chaos and noise and confusion.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Then I would put Born This Way just because I think the highs are just so incredibly high. And then I would put the Fame Monster at the top of the list because it is just all killer,
Peak.
no filler monster of an album.
Yeah. My ranking is really not that divorced from it. I think I'm gonna have to go Chromatica, followed very closely by Joanne, very closely then followed by The Fame, and then after that I would say Born This Way, then Mayhem, then The Fame Monster, and then Art Pop.
Pretty good ranking, all things considered.
She's got one of the more reliable discographies in pop music. Like I think that she's sort of like she's not quite a like a Beyonce caliber like artist where it's just like no, we've got like multiple definitive classics here, but like she's got a career that I feel like is so much more interesting than her contemporaries that it kind of elevates it a little bit, and that it's like it's not quite got those same high highs, but there's nothing like, again, you can't go back to this time period and find music that ages as well as all of this does. Even though it is endemic of the time, it still feels timeless through confidence alone.
Yeah, absolutely. She manages to sell whatever she's projecting, even if, at the time it might seem a little ridiculous and people don't buy into it. But eventually they come back around.
I kind of like her as a permanent underdog in the pop world too, because it always feels like she's got something to prove and it never feels like she lets it defeat her. She's always like, whenever she comes back, it's always with something that's just like, no, motherfucker, I'm here, pay attention to me. It feels like whenever something kind of lands, like with the exception of maybe like Joanne or something, it feels like it's really more the audience's problem for not doing her better cultural service than it is her making subpar music. Like she is one of our most enduring pop stars for a reason, and it is because at the end of the day, she has a great ratio of hits to albums that work as records that'll satisfy kind of old heads and music writers and stuff. Like there's nobody who like lights the collective neurons of the music community. Is like, the weird theater kids love it, the gay crowd loves it, writers love it, radios love it. It's just like it's got four quadrant appeal, and it's had four quadrant appeal for almost 20 years. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
She is a master of reinvention and she knows how to keep herself famous and well liked and in the headlines. And as you know, as we've gone over, like veering from aggressive EDM to Tony Bennett to country rock. You know how to keep yourself famous, and she's very good at that.
Absolutely. I mean, what better of a conclusion to arrive at when someone starts their career off with an album called The Fame? It's like, yeah, she said it. Like, there's no elaboration necessary. She's
Fucking
known
want
what she was about since day one.
gotta keep a hold of it always.
Absolutely. So, if you are listening, please go into the comments. Tell us your Lady Gaga rankings. We need to know because, frankly, this is a discography that is made to be fought over. Like, there are so many highlights, weird excursions, weird experiments that, like, it feels like no two people's ranking is going to be the same. So, like, let's hear it. And also, fucking, like, what do you think of Mayhem? Because that's an album that I feel like, didn't get its due so far. In terms of like pop albums this year, I have a hard time saying I've enjoyed one a little bit more than I've enjoyed that so far. So like
Great.
tell us what you think about that one. And if you haven't heard it yet, please do in fact give it a listen. And please go and check out Cole's work on things like the First Watch podcast, where he and friend of the channel, Zach, do amazing work about films of all shapes, sizes, movements, countries, all kinds of shit. I have listened to you all talk about movies I have never seen before, and I've always walked away being like, "Oh man, that was a really enriching discussion." Like I think I've listened to your all's like 5 hour Disney podcast like multiple times just because I was like, I gotta get through this shift. Gotta keep myself awake. So let's hear fucking Zach ramble about Sleeping Beauty again.
We did go hog wild on that one in the best way possible.
Absolutely. And do you have anything that you want to promote on here? Because all of my friends, they always got something to pimp out.
I mean, not at the moment. If you guys want to follow me on the website formerly known as Twitter, you can do that. I write on Letterbox sometimes, so you can follow me on there as well.
I would highly recommend it. Cole is one of my most studious film scholar friends. If there is a movement in cinema, you know something about that movement, and you have at least 5 movies to be like, here's the essentials. Brush the fuck up. So if you are looking for people to hand you some good film recommendations, fucking follow Cole for those recommendations. You will get them in spades.
Yeah, no, I enjoy being a film scholar and recommending things based on whatever you're interested in. So,
A scholar of pop music, film, and Italian things. Which is why this episode has been a long time coming because it's all of those things. All right,
uh,
signing off.